We, the jury, find the defendant, Orenthal James Henson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
Princess Diana dead.
Oh, she died.
Where's the remote?
Biggie Smalls was also embroiled in a rivalry between East and West Coast rappers. His competition, Tupac Shakur.
You're not getting involved as you supported. Oh, this is outrageous.
I haven't got AIDS. I'm HIV positive.
Hello and welcome to Time. I'm JP.
I'm Matty.
I'm Liam.
And I'm Benno.
And we're back, lads. And we're back in the wacky world of August 2003. So, the first question, as always, where were we all in August 2003? Gonna go to you first, Matthew.
Oh, come throw me under the bus first, JP. I was in year 13, so I was in sixth form at this point. It's last year, sixth form, JP.
Is it bad to be quite surprised that you were in sixth form for some reason? Do
you think I just left after year 11, JP?
I just figured
got them vibes.
Yeah, you got the fuck out as soon as possible.
You know, it's one of them. It was shorter shifts, though, JP, weren't it? In sixth form, you could go in just for a couple of hours here and there, whenever you wanted, really. So it was optional, as they say in some cases. So just loving it, JP. To be honest, mate, just living it up. How old was I? So I would have been 16, 17 at the time. So at this point, I was 17. Yeah, fucking hell, 20 years ago.
My sixth form was very optional. There were definitely afternoon. Might explain me grades, but there were loads of afternoons where it was like I had one. You know what I mean? Like your lessons have finished like 11, and then there'd be a break till like 2:30, and it was like, well, I'm clearly going home and playing like e-feds on AOL Instant Messenger instead. Why would I stay in school? Like, fuck that. And I've carried on that thought process through to my adult life, and it's how I treat working from home.
But to be honest, Ben, we had EWR going in year 13, so we went to the computer room and used there instead of checking home on the bus, which back then was like, it's ages getting the bus. Now it's like 10 minutes down the road. You know what I mean?
Again, it might explain my life choices, but I had mates in school who were like, why are you going home, Ben? I'm like, what have you possibly got to do? Why don't you just stay here, play footy with us and hang around? I was like, what do you mean? What have I got to do? I've got the internet at home. I've got the world in front of me. I can think of all the things I can do while the family are out. Of course, I'll be at home. I miss so many lessons.
I don't want to think of the stuff you're doing when the family's out, to be honest.
Yeah, you probably don't, actually. Cosplaying as New Jack. That's what I was doing.
Full disclosure, I was also 17. Well, I was also one of those ones who fucked off. And I took a year out when I was 17 before going to college when I was 18. And let me just say, when I was 17, the tape trading business was going great guns. So there were SCART leads everywhere. There were VHSs across the floor everywhere.
How many have you still got? How many SCART leads do you still have in your house? I've still got a couple.
I do have a couple. I do still have a couple.
Real ones, no SCART leads. HDMI cable.
So awkward to fit in, weren't they? Like the shape of them and stuff like that, and then you'd have to bend them.
You had to push it in, though, didn't you? You didn't just click. You had to really dig them in. I loved them.
Yeah, loved them. Then one of the pins bends, so it doesn't work. And incredible. But yeah, I do think I still got a few SCART. You never know when you might need them. It's like, is this like
you need that box?
Is this like the millennials version of taking the plug off all electrical appliances before you throw them away? Because you never know when you might need a plug. So you know, my dad had a shoebox that was like 24 plugs in there, just in case he ever needed a plug or a fuse. I think SCART leads are what they were to us and our generation, I think.
My first experience of getting my internet on my computer to go to the telly in the front living room in mum and dad's house around that period. I had a wireless transmitter. Did you ever go that far, Liam? Where it was a SCART lead with a little wireless box, and there was a wireless box that went into your PC at the other end. The lengths I would go to, Matty, to get low bit rate wrestling on my telly in the 2000s. It was a thing.
How did your dad react to that? Just like, what's this Japanese shit that's on my telly?
JP, you must have been about 35 at this point, mate. You're going to
taking the fucking piss. It was a year before my first son was born, though, I do have to say that. He wasn't around at this time, and I do often bring it up to him, as you'll get to later on, and for video viewers, you can see the backdrop behind me. I brought up the point he was, how much he jinxed the season after this one when he came around, and we've never won a league since. So he lives in hope for it. So yeah, this time one feels like, oh my god, I am fucking old for this one. So what was I doing? I was living in Islington. No. I was what was it? I'd moved in with the mother of my the first two sons. I can use that phrase now. And I just spent my time. I worked on Holloway Road. I went to Arsenal, and I went drinking on Upper Street in Islington, and that was me. That was like, yeah, I don't need to leave this little unholy triangle. And so, yeah, that's what I was up to. Yeah, where was I working at that stage? I was working at a voluntary organisation on a magazine. Not very exciting, but it was round the corner from Arsenal's ground. Back in the days when you had to go and get tickets in person, and I could just fuck off and do that, and just go and get tickets.
Did they ask what type of magazine?
Mate, it wasn't a jazz mag. It was like called Voluntary Voice.
Like a topical, or like just like.
I wrote one article for them, and it was about the building of the Emirates Stadium. Obviously, it wasn't called the Emirates at the time; it was Ashburton Grove. And I wrote about all the benefits. Why? Because it gave me an excuse to go to Arsenal and look like I was like a proper like journalist. Oh, can I have all the details on the planning? And it was like, yeah, you can have this. And I was like, fucking great, love this shit. Like, yeah, happy days.
I've just loaded up my CV to find out what job I was doing, and so I was filling my CV in the other day, lad. So I know, I know, I haven't done one in years, and then I realised nobody cares what job you did in 2003. You just make it up, couldn't you? I saw the memes going around. It's like, just say you were the regional manager of Blockbuster. Who's going to prove otherwise? I used to run an entire Toys R Us. Who knows? Instead, mine's like I worked in Booze Buster. Then I was a customer service agent, so I was doing a call centre work during that point in time. But I was living a bit of a dual life in 2003, in that, like, on the one hand I was very internet, and I was like, the first year I'd gone to Wisconsin to meet my EFED friends to chat with them. I was New Jack in the stable. He was Ahmed Johnson, so of course we had lots in common. So I was doing that, but then at the same time, the music we're going to talk about today kind of was the other part of my life, because like you, JP, out in the lash every weekend with some of those terrible tunes like in the background in local bars in Crosby. If Gareth was here, he might even back me up on the £1 drink deals you used to be able to do in those days. So I was a year removed from sixth form, so it was very much party time for a young 19-year-old Benno.
And you could cope with the hangovers then, I imagine, Benno, as well.
They were night out, mate. Sunday night out, Yeah, work canteen in the morning, get some breakfast, and you were good for the day. That's all it took.
There was a place in Birmingham that had a night called Student Overdraft, and you paid £10 to get in, but you didn't have to buy another drink for the rest of the night. It was basically you drank till, yeah. No wonder my 17th year was a bit of a haze. But
I was going to say, Matty, you were asking about props before we went live. I've gone very 2003 with my drinking mountain tonight. I went to Lidl tonight and got a St. Bertin French premium lager, about 2.9%, like my granddad would have had in 2003. I got a large case of them just for the occasion. Quantity over quality,
Well, I'm on the Stella Artois, JP, your favourite, mate. Yes, 4.6% these days, mate. But
France, Belgium, all covered.
Yeah, what are we doing, Liam?
I mean, this is definitely not for France, but anyway.
This may not be to everybody's taste, but I have a Aldi own American style root beer, no added sugar.
Beautiful. They're so good then. No calories, Matt. Be right for you. Be good for your diet.
I'm going to try that one. So we've got France, we'll say Belgium, America. JP, where are we around the world? Mate?
Incredibly boring, because still on recovering from the weekend before. I've got lime and sparkling water here. That's what I've got. And to the point where
speaking of 2003, lime and soda, please. 30p that, mate. At worst.
I like it.
You didn't feel like drinking. You were in a pub and you wanted to stay there for a long time. Lime and soda, mate. Yeah, all fucking day.
So Matthew, is the addition of lime to a sparkling water suitable, or do you still not drink it?
No, I'm still not having the sparkling water. Soda water's better, Liam. Like, genuinely, like, no sparkling, JP.
Mate, I haven't got a mixer in the fucking kitchen. Press down on it.
Should get one.
Give me some knockoff Coke.
Sounds great.
Water.
It's awesome. should say before we get into it, just to explain for those of you who've never listened before, what we do. Oh, Matthew, I should let you do this. Why am I explaining it? This is.
I should do it. I'm a regular now, lads. This is my.
I was going to say Benno's back to it.
No one's mentioned I've wormed into Garrett's seat. How I managed that, Matt? I'm sitting back at your show, not to me.
He's doing all right. He's staying somewhere where there's a fucking five-a-side football pitch, like on his where he is. That's a hell of an Airbnb wherever he is.
No, but as you say, JP, anyone who's never watched or listened before, we go through what I like to dub as the 4 pillars of life. We break them down from the said month and year that we choose, and obviously this episode's August 2003. So the 4 pillars are of life. They are television, they are music, they are film, and they are sport. Now, if anyone disagrees with that, Liam, we're not champion books in there as a 5th pillar, are we still, mate? I mean, they don't count these. They're nowhere near.
I'm trying. I got
a bit too intellectual for this show, mate. Isn't it?
I've got some classic titles that I'm going to bring out at some point, and we're all going to discuss. But until then, Matthew, the 4 sound fine.
Thank you very much, my friend. So, JP, shall we take it away with our first pillar of the evening? And it is over to you, Liam, first, to tell us what was on TV in August 2003, my friend.
Okay, so television. So we'll start at the 10th of August. And a big announcement. It was announced that after the end of season 4, Futurama was to end its initial run. Now, less so about the cancellation of Futurama, but I remember at the time there being a lot of hype around Futurama starting. Matt Groening, the creator of The Simpsons, doing a new animated series. There was a lot of excitement going into this, what it was. I never really liked it as much as I thought I should have. I thought it was a case of it was smarter than it thought it was. And at times, I thought it was a pale in comparison to The Simpsons, but it was very popular for the time. It lasted 4 seasons on its initial run. Does anybody else have any opinions on it?
I'm with you in that. Like, I should have liked it more than I did. I always felt like, you know, the way people talk about people being industry plants. I feel like Benno was an industry plant before the term was created. Like, he's a great character, don't get me wrong, but he was so obviously designed to be, this is going to be our cult character. He's a robot and he drinks. It's like Homer, but it's not. Like, we're going to build the whole show around it. And it was so on the nose and so obvious. It actually, I almost didn't like it on sight, and it worked me in, I think, eventually. And like, I think I appreciate it more in later years. It's a bit like Family Guy. Like, Family Guy's shite now, but you know, when it went away and then came back, that was obviously its glory run. And I feel like with Futurama, it going away and coming back, and that almost artificial demand people had for it made it higher in everybody's minds than maybe it was in real time. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm with you, Liam, in that. Like, I don't know whether it's the subject matter. Didn't love, you know, Bender's actually not the biggest problem. With some of the other characters I wasn't really a huge fan of. I did love Fry. The episode with the dog, I regret bringing it up. I apologize to anybody out there that's now bawling in tears. Like, one of the saddest episodes of TV I've ever seen. It's got some great moments, and I stuck with it, and I think I saw it all. But I think you've nailed it there. It was more because I thought I should like it rather than because I genuinely loved it. And there are, I'm sure, listeners out there who absolutely genuinely love it.
Yeah, that's a hard agree from me as well. The thing is, as well, is you've got to take into consideration how good The Simpsons still was at this stage. And I don't think what's helped is recently, my stepson George has just been binging loads of later Simpsons. So I've seen all of these ones I've never seen before. And I would have laughed maybe 2 or 3 times across like a season of episodes. And it felt to me like Futurama was this obvious, it's like you said with Bender, it's like, oh, here we're doing Sarky Homer Simpson as a robot who's a bit brighter and stuff like that. And it was never that it was bad. It was never like bad. And I've seen stuff from later series where it feels like it's more hitting its groove. But at that stage, it was like, yeah, if you're not doing this from season 1, you're going to struggle to kind of keep me. And so it was never appointment telly for me. It was, this is what Matt Groening did next. Yeah. And it never resonated with me in any kind of way, even though, like I say, it wasn't like it was bad, but it's not something that's come up now. I've got a dodgy box thinking, oh yeah, I should be maybe making an effort to have a watch of that. It's like, nah, bollocks to that.
I would say as well. I think it's got like Simpsons has got very obvious highs that we all know. No one needs to be told first 10 series are great, and then it slowly goes down from there because that's absolutely true. Was maybe Futurama was more consistent across time. It never hit those heights of Simpsons, but I definitely didn't hit the depths either. It almost felt like when Matt Groening, you mentioned there, JP, about like Simpsons was still going strong at this time. His focus, I think, came off Simpsons, and his favorite toy was Futurama rather than Simpsons. So I think he had a lot more love for it, and it stayed at a certain quality, even if it wasn't for me. Maybe that had a knock-on effect. I don't know.
Was I wrong as well as thinking it basically felt like an animated Red Dwarf in some ways? It's like it's taking some of the sort of component parts of guy gets frozen loads of years into the future, and it ends up with this wacky alternative universe and other stuff. And that's the problem, is it still felt kind of derivative of other things that I'd seen before. So yeah, it was never one I was excited about. What about you, Matthew?
Never done it really, like never interested me at the time, to be honest. It reminds me of going round to my cousin Gary's and his brother Keith, and that it was appointment viewing to them, and I'd just be sitting there like just not into it at all, to be honest with you. They're howling laughing on the couch, like. So
is it IWC Simpsons, Matt?
I was about to say it's one of the most IWC shows of all time. Futurama,
Simpsons
like,
too mainstream. It's just because you mentioned your Gary, I was like, oh yeah, he like the IWC version of the Simpsons, not the Simpsons.
100%.
Were you never drawn in, Matty, by Katie Sagal, Married with Children, Sons of Anarchy, doing the voice of the main character in it? You know.
See, once again, Liam, I don't know like the ins and outs of the show, so I didn't know she was actually a voice of one of the characters there. But I do like Katie Sagal, love her. Yeah.
Just to close up on Futurama, I think a similar transition around this time in terms of somebody who did something before, and there had been a lot of fan anticipation for what was to come next, I think, was Mike Judge. I was a massive fan of Beavis and Butthead, and then King of the Hill came afterwards, and I was a much bigger fan of King of the Hill than I was of Futurama. I think King of the Hill was different enough from Beavis and Butthead that it felt like its same show, whereas Futurama did kind of have that parallels with The Simpsons, even to a point of when characters crossed over into both shows, that it was almost, as Benno said, it was almost too on the nose, that the similarities of the characters were like you were watching the same program in a way.
Until you said it then, I wouldn't have put King of the Hill with Beavis and Butthead. I don't think of them in the same space in my brain in the way I do feature on a Simpsons. So no, totally.
Hank was incredible, wasn't he? What a character.
Propane.
So moving on.
Called? Loved him too. The little fat ginger kid. Don't know why I like the fat ginger kid. Somebody knew it. That's why I like Fry too. I was represented on screen. It was great.
But yeah, moving on to the 21st of August, ITV announces that its Saturday morning children's entertainment series, SMTV Live, will end after 5 years because of falling ratings, and will be replaced by a new series in early 2004. Now, I was kind of too old for Saturday morning TV at this point. I felt I wasn't one to wake up when I was 17 to watch cartoons and Anton Deck run around a TV studio. But I do have fond memories of this, that its strong suit was almost that it was a kid's early morning TV show. But I suppose the best comparison is something along the lines of Big Breakfast, in the fact of there was a lot that was catered towards adults within it that didn't alienate the children that the program was intended for. Off the top of my head, I remember Chums there.
Liam, I was going to make, how good was it? Chums, though, like that last episode of Chums, like where like it was a Deck and Cat finally like got together, wasn't it, in the last one? Unbelievable, mate. Like it was genuinely like must-see telly. Chums, loved that.
But yeah, I think this was the natural successor to Live and Kicking that was on the BBC. Live and Kicking ended, and it was almost like I went through a full childhood of not watching children's television on ITV, but I got to this point and I kind of appreciated that SMTV Live was by far and away the better option on a Saturday morning. Does anybody agree with that? Were people ITV kids instead of BBC kids growing up?
I was about to say
back and forth. Would you be the same?
I was always Live and Kicking. Always Live and Kicking, Liam. Like when I was like younger, but then I used to switch over for Chums, and I was just saying that I knew he was on it. Remember Kurt Angle was on Chums, guys?
Yeah.
It was Jerry Springer with it.
Yeah,
The same one.
I've seen that clip recently. Yeah,
He was a security guard, wasn't he? He played played the role of the security guard. Yeah, I think that was half of the draw of Live and Kicking, because Live and Kicking was the one that always had the wrestlers on, wasn't it? Whatever the BBC
absolutely.
one was, Going Live, Live and Kicking. That was always the one when they were promoting the UK tour or so. It was always what the
hungover wrestlers. That's
and
what I remember from that, like Shawn Michaels, Scott Hall, all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Bret Hart being on there as well. Macho Man, I think, was on the episode. And it was also TV without adverts. And I think as a younger person with a short attention span, having that television which was consistent and not having to switch off and come back in did have its value. I mean, I don't think kids see that now with the world of ad blockers and everybody watching TV through YouTube where adverts can be skipped and whatnot. But I think at the time, having something that was consistent did have a value to me, that I wasn't having to get up or do something while adverts were on.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, because it was Going Live before Live and Kicking. Dare I say, Gordon the Gopher and the rest. That's how fucking old I am.
Tis was for you, JP, wasn't it?
Don't take the piss. I remember that.
Gareth's not here, JP, so you're getting it all today.
I'm sorry, JP, mate. Sorry.
I always knew that was a thing, but I always thought what they did quite cleverly. And this is what happened like with SMTV. And then Dick and Dom did the same thing, but they realized you've got two audiences here. You've got kids because they're up, and you've got hungover parents or hungover people who as well. So you've got to get a giggle from them as well. And it just was so, it was like the right side of a narkic and stuff like. I mean, like even the clip that we've got up on the screen.
Dave Bowers, mate. What a voice.
Yeah, exactly. There's stuff in there where you're thinking, okay, this is kind of like slightly wacky. There's very much that big TFI Fridays kind of like feel to it as well, and it worked. And Dick and Dom was very much the same, and have like very odd guests, and you think, why are they on kids TV? It doesn't really make any sense, and it never felt like kids TV. Although I do have to confess, when I saw Tess Daly in my head, I had Cat Deely, and and I was like, oh my god, like you have to say the similarities. And then I forgot, like Tess Daly, look at the stuff she's gone on to ever since, like fucking hosting Strictly and the rest of it. She's like kind of like broadcasting royalty at this stage. But they always say if you can handle doing kids telly, you can handle everything.
Well, do you know how old Tess Daly was there in 2003, lads?
Oh, don't.
Oh no, I'm scared. Go on.
34.
Oh wow! Wouldn't have guessed.
34, mate. She's 54 now. 55. Lads.
Really? Wow.
Seriously.
Wow.
I mean, everyone I knew had who was like 17, 18, 19 had a crush on her. Younger, you know, when I was a younger teen.
Born on the 29th of March, 1969.
Wow.
Yeah, seriously.
It shouldn't be unusual, should it? But in TV in those days, like,
yeah,
you wouldn't have expected that.
How old's Vernon Kay in that case?
Should we get him up, JP, just for you?
Put him up on there.
I always liked the way like these kid shows though, they were like you said then, it was NXT, wasn't it? For presenters, it was just a dry run. You're gonna meet all the celebrities, you're gonna see how you do here, and then we'll move you up the card into like the proper shows. And it happened for so many of these people, you know, Ant and Dec obviously being gigantic.
Yeah, Vernon Kay, lads, 29 at this point. That's not bad, is it? That's not a bad one.
Right. In his 20s.
20s.
As a kid, though, you would have thought he was ancient, wouldn't you? You're like, he's like granddad.
Yeah.
What's he doing these days? Family Fortune. Stephen Mulhern's on this as well, isn't he?
He's made the clear. He smashed it, and he's Mulhern. Like he's on it.
Yeah.
Granted, I haven't watched terrestrial TV in about 7 years. That's a legit shoot. But every time back then,
Shoot, brother.
like he was on everything. Then is he still going on Catchphrase on Saturday nights? Is he still going yet, Mulhern? Because he was fucking coining it in back then. Like
so. Matty, do you know why Cat Deely left SMTV and what territory she went to?
Did Sky poach you, Liam?
No, she went to BBC. She went to BBC to focus on hosting Fame Academy.
Oh Fame Academy, Lamar. Yeah.
We're in that period, aren't we? Where it's like all like Saturday night Pop Idol start and that type of thing.
Pop the Rivals and all that. Yeah, I didn't know that, Liam. Big shout out.
But like Benno says, it really is NXT for TV presenting. That you look at the people who went through it, and Ant and Dec are the testament to it. They're the biggest TV presenters in the country at the moment, aren't they? And they work their way from Biker Grove, SMTV. Did the indie run, Matt? And
they definitely worked with the territories. They done the territories.
Headlining stadiums now.
Yeah.
Couldn't they? They could do Wembley.
They genuinely could, though.
I don't know if it's around this time as well.
Yeah.
Where Ant and Dec, and I'll always bring it up, their Channel 4 like sketch comedy show that was on at like 6 in the evening. I thought this will be shit, and I remember watching it going, "No, they're good at this. Like fucking hell, they've got some talent. Look at that. They are like part of the furniture in this country, aren't they?
Yeah,
totally.
One of the few things holding it together in the midst of race riots and economic crisis is Ant and Dec, isn't it?
Like even like to the point when Ant had like his, was stuff that happened, like the drunk driving or whatever it was. Like they came through it, didn't they? They were too big a start for it to completely pull them down. But the other point I was going to make, we talk about them moving up the card and all of that. Like, how long have they been on top though? It's Hogan-esque now, isn't it? It's like 20 years of like uninterrupted top of the card Saturday night TV.
Yeah.
Haven't they won like 21 years in a row, like the best presenters or at the British or whatever awards, Liam? They've literally won it every year for like 20 years, as Benno said.
I mean, I would argue that ITV has nothing else that's as good as Ant and Dec. I mean, that isn't necessarily a positive about Ant and Dec, but
true.
It's just like that. They are synonymous with ITV now, aren't they? They are ITV.
100%.
You think ITV, you think Ant and Dec. And
I'm a celeb, innit?
Exactly. Every big vehicle that the ITV has now.
You better start early the ITV.
The ITV. The central television.
Shout out though to when they had Paul O'Grady on top of the territory. He did a decent job. I remember just going to visit my mum, and all of a sudden he was on telly, and I was like,
"The Nans loved him."
Yeah, but he went to Channel 4 and had an even bigger run, surprisingly, on Channel 4, didn't he? Like, he was synonymous for me. But was he the way around, Liam? Channel 4 to ITV, wasn't it?
No, ITV to Channel 4.
Yeah. Big run.
Because they tried to give Titchmarsh a push afterwards, didn't they?
They did, yeah. They got a vet in, an old vet. Transferred it from the garden to the host seat.
That was never going to work, was it?
But no, okay. Moving on into our usual look at the soaps.
Yes.
What's going on? Our period in time. We're going to start with the Eastenders. Now, watching this episode of Eastenders, it was almost like it wasn't an episode of Eastenders for the amount of characters that I didn't recognise. The main point of the episode being based around the Ferreira family, who came into the soap at of June 2003, and they were the big new family that were coming in, and there were a lot of storylines planned to go through them. In this episode, it's in a wedding. It starts with a fist fight between the two brothers of the family, and it kind of just goes from there, really. A lot of stars that you would probably recognise, not from EastEnders, but from TV after the Ferreira family appeared in EastEnders. Mother Jaffrey playing the mother of the family really took me back. Remember watching her cook when I was a kid with my mother. And probably the biggest star that's on is Nalib. Let me get this right. Nalib Ul-Harbi, who Mr. Mustafa from Top Boy, and probably more famously known as the character referred to as Gary from Only Fools and Horses. So, Matty, I know you're a big EastEnders guy here. Yeah, do you have fond memories of this period of EastEnders?
The Ferreiras were a big, like they got, as you say, they got the big push right out the gate, didn't they, JP? But they genuinely just got axed, didn't they? It was like, I'm trying to compare a wrestler, JP, who got like this big push straight away and then was just took off TV.
Didn't draw.
Genuinely just didn't draw at all. Because this was a point where EastEnders but Corrie was clawing it back a big time, innit? And they were trying anything in the ratings to get it back. And I do remember just big headlines in the papers at the time that they sensationally, I don't know, it just got dropped out of thin air. Like, but they did try with them, JP, didn't they?
So what are we saying? Are we saying the Nathan Jones of the square?
It could be the Nathan Jones. That's a good shout. Got a mania out of it. Got to push out the gate.
If you want to think to yourself, a lot of these kind of families, I like your Nathan Jones, your Hayden Reichs, your Snitsky. Basically, he will just get a family and they've moved in. That's it. We're just going to put 6 characters in there. They'll have a load of storylines that go off from there, and it never quite works. And I always thought like they never looked at what they did wrong with the DeMarcos and how they booked those. And we'll often come back to the DeMarcos of thinking, they're naturally set up for
there he is, last
top line feud.
This is
well.
What a meme, though. The best meme. I'm gonna do it anyway.
It's so usable in so many scenarios, isn't it? I
so
love him
good.
though, because he knows his place in the world, doesn't he? He knows I am like the Ricky Gervais thing, isn't it? I'm Barry from
Extras,
EastEnders.
really.
But that scene, extras that came from that. But that scene there with Barry and Janine, that's what brought, because I didn't recognise the family at all at the start. And then once that scene comes, like, okay, I know all the rest of these characters, but Barry and Janine was just like, that's an all-timer, isn't it? Like, it's ridiculous watching it back, like that it was a thing. But like that was one I'd be reading the papers about what was coming, reading the IWC spoilers in the mirror that there was a death coming. Around
inside
I guess wasn't far after this.
Yep.
It is, isn't it? Because we've got like basically kind of like a changing of the guard somewhat, haven't we? With this is like there's a lot of that cast who went from like the original cast in the 80s, who went then through the 90s, and it was like, right, now we need to move past them. So you have like the Slaters have been established there for a while, but I think we've got to remember they weren't around that much longer before. I want to say they've been there for like 5 years, which is nothing in EastEnders terms as well. Jim Branning is relatively new.
Yeah,
and it was like when I was like,
but he was
Vicky, it was
great. Liked him and Dot as a couple.
Him and Patrick,
tag team,
big tag team. No, him and Patrick was like tag team, like on the ale, on the whiskey.
Yeah, I guess Pauline and Dot were the tag team.
Yeah.
Big APA vibes you get from Jim Branning and Patrick Truman there, don't you? Shane Ritchie, and I think this is possibly, and it might have been like the start of a big thing that you would find in a lot of soaps, and in particularly you'd see. We'll talk about it when we get to Corrie in a minute as well, where you're lifting people from other places where they're kind of famous, aren't they? So Shane Ritchie, you're getting in there, and you just immediately like, okay, we're just going to put him on top.
That was one of the first, wasn't
he? Yeah. He was one of the first.
Yeah. I think he's got to that period now within soaps that the famous actors that are coming in playing roles are people that we recognise. Because I remember watching with my parents, and somebody from films in the 70s would appear in it. Like Susan George is what I always remember, and she would be in EastEnders. And my mum and dad would know exactly who she was, but I wouldn't have a clue. But like you say, someone like Shane Ritchie coming into it at this point, it's like I know exactly who that is. And then it kind of stems from there. You get like what Richard Blackwood ends up in EastEnders, doesn't he? Like Danny Dyer, and exactly. You know, it
Barbara Windsor was the first.
Yes, Barbara Windsor is probably the most famous. Yeah, probably the most famous out of all of it. But Matty, talking about the Ferreira family.
Okay, I'm sorry, I've had to come back on there, JP. Fuck me, man. Oh, fuck. I'm literally crying. I'm crying. Oh.
Did we got any tears left after Wembley?
Oh, mate. Sorry, Liam, what was that, mate? Oh.
I was saying about the Ferreira family. Apparently, the EastEnders writers did have big designs on them as a family, and there was going to be a massive storyline that culminated at Christmas that year, based around the family. But the father of the family, Indian actor Dalit Talil, was forced to leave because he had a problem with his work permit, so he had to leave the country. So the EastEnders writers had to apparently change the storyline. It ended up with a storyline based around a kidney transplant.
I was going to say organ. I remember an organ being involved, Liam.
And the family left the square because of that. So I think the ending that they got as a family wasn't what was planned initially for them.
Right, yeah. As I say, I remember that vividly with that family. Like, it was such a big, as I said before, a big like fucking news story all in the papers. Because that's what we would do. We were still in that point where the soaps were still massive in the papers, weren't it? It was like
front page.
Ridiculous. And when we move on to the other soaps, like especially one of them in particular, my mind was blown watching it, and it was like it took me back genuinely, guys. Like I haven't watched soaps consistently once again for like well over half a decade now. They were appointment viewing. You can't stress this enough. They were so fucking good. They were just etched in your mind, and the characters like genuinely live on forever, don't they? From like back in the day, just unbelievable they were. Well, Billy, Perry Fenwick still having a go, Jake. Well, he must be young here. Yeah, is he still in it now?
Gary Beadle, who
Yeah.
it doesn't spring to mind exactly what I should be remembering Gary Beadle from, but he feels like he was a regular on my telly around this point in time. I'm sure I saw him on something on Showtime.
He became quite a good character in EastEnders, a recurring character. Gary did. The Truman brothers, I thought were.
Yeah, he got a. I remember his death. You didn't see it on screen. He drove away, didn't he? And it was quite sinister, but like you knew he was getting taken to his death, and you never ever seen.
Yeah.
I was like Gary Beadle as like a proper heel, because his brother, Dr. Truman was like the goody two-shoes, and he was just like
end up with cats as well.
Brother, wasn't he?
Yeah,
even that scene there, he's smoking a little cigarette and he's just a little bit evil. Yeah. Which of the two of them was in Football Factories? Was it him or was it Dr. Truman?
It's his brother, isn't it? And Anthony Truman, who was the doctor. Yeah, he was in Football Factory.
Definitely seen Gary Beadle and other stuff though, maybe like B films. Yeah, there's people like that, they pop up and you, oh my god, yeah, you've been in EastEnders. Everyone did the run, didn't they? Everyone did it.
Yeah, everyone.
But we've just sat here and said this era of EastEnders, it's got a new family in that really kind of petered out. We've got episodes which is kind of lacking of the bigger stars that we come to recognise with EastEnders. Your Mitchell brothers are not in it. You know, a lot of characters. Dirty Den, it's not back in it. We're going through that period then. Still done 10 million viewing. It just goes to show how strong the brand is.
Rode the wave, didn't it? Rode the
absolutely.
wave. 100%.
Absolutely.
Elevating those new stars.
Yep. So moving on to its natural rival in in the Monday, Wednesday, and Friday night wars.
And Sunday Omnibus wars.
The Sunday Omnibus. Coronation Street. We're looking at an episode from the 1st of August for this episode of Coronation Street. Before I go on, Matty, anything on this episode?
Anything on this episode? Right. Keith Duffy straight away, lads. Like, JP, straight out the blocks with Keith Duffy here.
Oh.
What a run.
Absolutely incredible for that as well. I'm just getting it up on here now at the minute. But yeah, Keith Duffy appearing there, who he was boys own.
Yeah, he was boys own, but he actually made the transition well, didn't he, Liam? People genuinely liked him in this, didn't he? Like, they did. It wasn't a thing, like, you know.
What always confused me about Keith Duffy being this is that he left Boyzone, and Boyzone split up, and he went into this serious acting role. But the year before this, he was playing the barman in Bo Selector, and I could never work out. How that transition from being in Bo Selector to Coronation Street kind of happened. It was always weird.
Wild, mate. Wild. But look, a couple of, like, once again, I always think Corrie, I'm always going to be in the, always said this about the soaps. EastEnders to me is like the WWE. It's like, you can watch Corrie for your IWC, for this, that, and the other, but when EastEnders get the big storylines and the big moments right, you'll never beat it. You'll never beat it. But Corrie here, I think they got the youngsters over better, JP. Like the fresh talent got over more in Corrie and had longer careers, like your Tyrones, like your Leanne Battersby's. And I think that's just me thinking it. There could be loads people can counteract with EastEnders. But I think Corrie, even Jason Grimshaw here as well. When you look at it though, lads, isn't this just, and this is what I love watching things with an older head. This is just the new Liz McDonald with the new McDonald like brothers, isn't it? With like Jason and Todd. It's just so same house as well, I think, as well, isn't it? Literally the same house. I love the way, like, if we've had an idea, let's do it again, let's make it work. And it did, because Eileen was in it for years, Jason was in it for years, probably still in it now. They could be like, but also in this, mate, lads, and I'm seriously not even messing here, I'm not playing a bit. This is why we do this show. This is why it's called Time, right? Kaylee Watts-Liam in 2003 in Corrie. I was watching it going, no, this can't be true. What's going on? He must have come back, Liam. He couldn't have been in it. He must have returned and had another run. There's no chance in hell he stayed in this till 2003. There's no way.
This is the contract Bret Hart wanted from the WWF, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to have to get Kevin Kennedy up here, because didn't he try and be like a pop star as well, guys? Like that never ever went like anywhere.
I do think he did release a song or so, yeah.
Yeah. He did. He tried at this stage as well. I think this is where Corrie did a better job of building up some new people
Defo,
into the mix,
JP, yeah,
and they
defo.
did it well. But this isn't an era of Corrie that I was big into. The Tracy Barlow Dev era, as I think of it, when they're introduced, it was like I was more of an EastEnders man than a Corrie man. That was like my mum's soap, and that wasn't necessarily mine. But this stage, like they got Tyrone in there easily enough, but if you notice as well, it's one at a time, it's two at a time. It's not like you're plonking a big family into.
But even Rosie there, Helen Flanagan, look, she's there literally as a kid, and she stayed in it throughout. You know what I mean? So there's another one there, JP. You know, getting the people over. But Kevin Kennedy, I'm just on his Wikipedia, lad. He released Bulldog Nation in the year 2000, peaked at number 70 in the UK singles chart, but then he returned to Corrie in 2000 before being written out in 2003 September. So this is like like near the end of that run of Curly. I mean, we're counting down Brian Danielson's end of run here, lads. I mean, we should be doing Curly's last year, JP.
I'm just saying there with Curly Watts from 1983 to 2003 was his Coronation Street run, and that totaled 1,563 episodes.
Bloody
absolute crazy.
Wow. But he bought a couple of houses with that money, though, didn't he, Curly? Wouldn't he?
You imagine
but you still got you still got the Duckworths around the place. Still got Jack and Vera.
JP, I've got that written down. I've got Jack and Vera on them Legends deals here. I'd like to just shoehorn them in a couple of scenes, getting Tyrone over, working main eventers, working what it should be. Main eventers getting the young talent over on screen time. It's honestly one-on-one fucking TV writing, isn't it? Let's be honest. And then the big angle throughout the show it must have been on the last episodes where Tommy must have smacked Tyrone and he's fuming in the garage, and you get the big angle where Kevin gets them together to shake hands, and it's not the best handshake in the world, like, but Tommy's got that sure fuse gimmick, JP, going on here, so it's I really enjoyed this. Honestly, made me want to watch more Corrie, and the biggest scene of the whole. This is what I'm saying about big characters, like just etched in your brain, like Steve and Mike Baldwin, who like probably didn't interact loads, just standing at the bar. Steve asking Mike to give his missus a job. I just love two big, genuine, like all-time soap characters just having a conversation. It's what it's all about, lads. Like seeing them share the screen. Brilliant stuff.
And not underselling it at all out of everybody that's in this episode, just seeing that scene previous to this one here. Saran Jones went on to become one of the biggest actresses in this country, didn't she? You know, and that started from Coronation Street, sorry. So as you say, you know, what we were saying about SMTV, a lot of the period around this time, a lot of the soaps were having new talent come through that kind of transcended soaps a couple of years down the line from this and started getting within their own vehicles within ITV and BBC.
Michelle Keegan, another one later on down the line, was another one who come in, was dropped in there and just took off, didn't she? And was amazing in Corrie, and then gone on to bigger and better things again.
Yeah.
This would also be the point in time where ITV were doing big on their cross promotion. So if they were doing reality shows or like kind of reality TV or early evening Saturday night stuff, there was always Corrie. So if they did Stars in Your Eyes celebrity special, there was always a Corrie team. Yeah. There was always like Corrie actors on it. Same thing with Family Fortunes. It was just like you had a Corrie crew that you kind of went to there. Baldwin didn't do it, bless him. And he was around for donkey's years.
Baldwin, what an all-timer. What a character. Like, just a legend, really. Johnny Briggs. Fucking brilliant, mate.
He was.
I think a little further on in this episode of time, we'll be talking about guys who are on ITV contracts who are more interested in playing golf. I think Johnny Briggs I think Johnny Briggs is the first one on the list tonight.
He's in the Scotch club, isn't he, Liam? Johnny Briggs genuinely is, like, genuinely is, mate. Love it.
Absolutely. But yeah, that's Coronation Street. For August 2003. Moving on to the other soap, and the soap that I think we're most fond of for the most part on here, and that's Brookside. And Brookside is slowly coming to an end at this point.
You can tell here, lads. You can tell.
It's slowly coming to an end, and in hindsight, watching this back, it's sad to see what Brookside has become at this point. Just to fill in some of the blanks with this. Brookside at this point had moved from having 3 episodes a week into a block of 90 minutes that was first broadcast at 4:30 on a Sunday. At this point where we're looking at an episode in August, it had then moved to Wednesday nights after 11 o'clock where 3 episodes were filmed to be shown in their usual weekly half-an-hour slots on the evening, but at this point Channel 4 kind of wanted the end of Brookside, so 3 episodes were shown back to back to back in one block in the evening, kind of like the Oz slot, like I used to call it. 11 o'clock some nights, midnight's the other night, 1 a.m. on a Friday some nights. You had to look at your TV guide to see when it was coming on. It wasn't, this is the time.
And Liam, I've got to stress, a physical TV guide, none of this on the screen. The literal magazine. Yeah.
TV Quick, what's on TV. Satellite Times was always my go-to.
Radio Times if you're posh.
Radio Times. Yeah, Radio Times if you're posh. No adverts in the magazine either. You know what I mean?
Business.
Yeah. So yeah, at this point, Brookside's coming to an end, and the first thing I noticed about watching this episode or 3 episodes in a row is how few characters
Liam
focused.
It's basically 4, and you get like that random couple who didn't even know. It's basically it's Nicky Shadwick, her mum, Jimmy, and Tinhead in it. That's literally all you see all episodes.
That's 90 minutes worth of TV with 4 characters there.
Yeah, you can tell that shows you how and says it all of where they're at this point for sure.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah, I mean it was cancelled in November. That was the last episode was 4th of November for it being on there as well. It'd already been announced that it was going to be axed anyway, and it just felt like it was just going through the motions. I mean, the theme tune and the remix for that is absolutely god awful as well. But it's how cheap it is. Yeah. It's just like how
to death as well in it. Like you can tell
it's horrible.
But JP, if you've got to a big but, I will say is if you're going to have one character out the 4, I mean, Jimmy Corkle in it. He's still trying his absolute best. What a pro, though, lad. Seriously. This is like WCW in the dying days. This is whatever you want to call it. This is a wrestling in front of like 25 people. He's still giving it his all as Jimmy Corkle and delivering, and you've got to give him credit for that. That's what I took from this episode.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, storyline-wise, it's just like there's nothing to this at all. And it's just like the most... I mean, I skipped liberally for a bit. So I started watching this and I was like, what they're doing, this entire bloody block is an hour and 10 minutes. I only just sort of noticed it towards the end, but there's very little in the way of like even exterior shots. I was just shocked by, it was very clear, like, right, you are contracted to produce television until this point and we're just going to slice your budget. And that's what they did. And yeah, killed it.
It was big news around here, wasn't it, Matty? I remember like the Liverpool Echo covering it constantly, like the strife on set and the fact that like there was no money in the budget. It does feel like dying days WCW, where it's just like, oh yeah, there's no money there, the network's not behind it, they're quietly going to cancel it. I feel like I remember stories like Jimmy Corkle's going to show up on Corrie or something like that instead. It was very dirt cheat, wasn't it? But everyone could like smell that same sense.
Are you saying like a Phil Redmond's Eric Bischoff then? Is that what we're saying?
There you go. That's it. But it's funny though, Matt, because I always think like, I think JP and like back in the early days of Spotlight, JP and Joe would always be talking to Brookside at me, and I'd kind of get it, but it was like this period was kind of what I remembered, so I didn't have like that same nostalgia that they did. Really, it was never really for me as much as it like it seems like there's people outside of here, but maybe it's different in the south end of Liverpool than the north end of Liverpool, you know.
Incredible, Brookside, like the legit like big storylines, and as we always say, controversial, pushed the boundaries, didn't he? Really, more than any other soap. And they were saying it was it you said the ECW? Is it JP? Is it definitely the ECW for sure? Like, and everyone follows.
Well, the ICW, Jimmy Corkle did around there, you know. Were you at that show, Matt, or were you not there?
I wish it was. Now you've told me this, like.
Good stuff.
This is very much guilty as charged 2001 though. This episode.
So ultimately, what do you, JP? What do you feel led to Brookside's demise? Do you think that every other soap had kind of moved on, that the calling card of Brookside was its controversy and for tackling issues that other soaps wouldn't, and then other soaps like Coronation Street and EastEnders have kind of had the reign to tackle them issues themselves, but on a bigger budget in prime time? Or do you think it's just a case of Brookside kind of ran out of ideas and then people stopped watching?
I think it's a combination of things, really. I think a lot of it might just be changes from Channel 4, because I could see them probably going, okay, we want a younger soap, we're going to go with Hollyoaks, and it's a lot less regional. dare I say it. Like, they're just thinking about it as like, this is something where we can just put in lots of beautiful young people and we can just throw them onto that rather than dealing with this. Because this, like, I mean, if nothing else, one of the things that Brookside always got right early doors was kind of as a level of social realism that it kind of got. And that's completely absent from it at this point in time. Yeah. It really is. It's the Jimmy Corkill show. Yeah, at this stage, but without all the members of his family, and I think that's part of the problem with it is they kind of just wanted they would have thought in the way that a TV executive would have thought in the early 2000s. This is passé. We'll get rid. It's Greg Dyke looking at World of Sport and just going, nah, it doesn't fit the remit of this station. We're getting rid, and that's what they did. That's what they did with Brookside. I mean, there's probably like a lot more stories about it as well, but I can remember the last episode of it. Like the lines that Jimmy Corkill's delivering about like TV not understanding.
He's shooting JP. He's proper shooting there. Like, yeah, he is. Yeah. And it also Barry Grant's Paul Usher. That's like Sting coming back on the last Nitro though. For the last Brookside. It genuinely is getting the legend. No, it is though. It's fitting like that. He sorted the close out, didn't he? From them like people who tried to take over what they called the Yobs. You know what I mean? The close. So boss. Great memories of Brookside though. Honestly, incredible.
Yeah,
incredible.
Absolutely. So yeah, that completes the soaps for August 2003. So moving on from soaps, we've added what some may call a soap, but something that we've wanted to look at on time for quite a while, and that's an episode of The Bill. JP, I know you're a big Bill fan. So watching this episode, 2003's Bill, how do you think this shapes up in your memories of terms of episodes of The Bill previous?
So previously on The Bill, previously, it was half an hour. It was a 30-minute show. It was very much like you had one storyline. You followed a couple of the coppers at Sun Hill, and that was it. This is very much, we're making an hour-long kind of like Waterloo Road style drama, basically, where it's about the sort of romantic ins and outs, and it's more about that stuff. And the whole kind of plot line is stuff that kind of goes off to the side as much as anything else. This is not, if Joe was here, this is Joe's Bill. Like this kind of stuff, he absolutely loves it. He loves it when Mark Fowler turns up. He'll tell you all the stuff about how it fits in with June Carver and everything else here. Yeah. Whereas for me, I watched it and what I noticed was it was like, okay, they're getting the people who are like the cast-offs from EastEnders and they're coming onto the bill. And that's what it's being filled with is like kind of soap actors primarily in order to kind of fill the roles up. And the storyline I have like is a bomb in a cinema for this one, which is kind of like quite wacky. The Motion Picture Palace, I have to say, which I thought was a good name. Like, I thought, okay, there's a cinema near me called the Ultimate Picture Palace. I was like, okay, I can kind of appreciate that. But it is, again, it's very much like there's a couple of regulars from the older series, but it's moving much more in a soap direction. And I actually wonder whether or not that's a direction they should continue. I mean, they've always spoke about bringing it back, and that would be a direction I'd want them to bring it back and do, because I always think that would be the thing that makes a lot more sense than anything else. But I mean, you can see there on screen
Irene, isn't it? Irene off EastEnders,
off EastEnders there as well. And it's like it's an interesting period of time for where this is as a show, because clearly it's like, okay, we've got time to fill, but we want to make this more like a kind of like a soap, basically. Because like you said, it's not officially a soap, but really the bill was a soap. And this is the most soap aspect, the most soap era of it. Because before then, it was just a kind of a police procedural. Like it just followed classic police procedural. They investigate a crime, they find out what happened, they move on, and they never really go back to it. Whereas this, like I say, it's all to do with the relationships.
Yeah. But you know, as well with the bill, that was one of the first, I remember anyway, first shows that done a live episode. You remember how big of a deal that was? Yeah. Like it was legit, like a massive deal like that. I remember that like it was yesterday.
A gigantic waste of time as well doing live episodes of soaps. It doesn't really add anything to the audience, and you're just setting yourself up for a fall.
Someone always fluffs the lines. I remember when in EastEnders, what was her name? Tanya Brannan, Max Brannan's wife, called Bradley his real name instead of his character. She called his shoot name. Brilliant. Fucking love that. And she called Ian Beale Adam as well in the show.
Benno, ever a fan of the bill?
To an extent, I think for me it was like something I'd watch as a kid and just be excited about, like the fact that it was a TV show about policemen, and be excited for the end credits more than anything, for the walking down the street with the boots and stuff. But like, yeah, like my main memory is as I got older, starting to recognize all the actors from different soaps and stuff, and realizing it's not this in my head, this grizzled cop show. It is just a soap at the end of the day, kind of like that was what coloured it, really. So it was a favourite when I was younger, but it didn't really hold up. I love hearing JP talk about it. I love hearing Joe talk about
Joe
it.
and JP talking about it. That's a podcast in itself.
Yeah.
Oh, that's one, isn't it? We'll let them take over the pre-show 1 week, maybe that'll work.
Oh, mate. There as well, though. If we're saying Reg, JP's Reg's like the Miz, like just that longevity of like he's just there all the time.
The Brooklyn Brawler, mate, is Reg, isn't he? He just never went away, but he was at that low level part.
So likable, though, isn't he? He's so lovable.
Oh, yeah.
He'd be a great underdog babyface, wouldn't he? Like WCW Hardcore Division or something like that. It'd be great.
Did he ever turn heel, JP? Surely not. Career babyface.
No, he's career babyface.
Yeah,
that's what he was. He didn't have those kind of bigger moments. He didn't have Tony with him. No, did he? I don't know if Tony's in the series. I don't think he's not in this episode. That's all. But it's again, you think about stuff like this is the kind of show that they should be bringing back for, like, if you're wanting an easy sort of filler in the schedule, a Bill remake is what you do. And you bring back I don't know, you bring back Polly or whoever.
You bring back a couple of legends just to get it off the mat, don't you? Off the ground.
June Carver. June now on for retirement. Not it's Jim Carver. Bring him back as well, actually. That's my favourite era. Drunk Jim Carver. Awesome.
Just to finish off with it, Bill, and continue on what JP was saying. Watching this episode, it kind of stands out that it doesn't know what it wants to be. It's kind of a soap, but it also is veering into like a prime time prestige ITV drama, but it doesn't have the budget to do that. So it almost looks cheap for what it is, because it's really trying to lend itself to this serious police show with like serious storylines based around relationships. And it became very more serialized around this point in time as well, that each episode continued into the episode afterwards. So it's not necessarily the Bill that I remember. I remember the Bill being a bit more carefree in a way, and the stories not being as overbearing on the whole outset of the show. So it is in two minds. This isn't the Bill that I fondly remember.
The three pillars of emergency services: the Bill, Casualty, and London's Burning. Are they the three?
1000%, Benno.
That's the other question.
The three. Nailed it there, mate. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Soldier, if you want to get to the armed force.
Yeah, there you go. But it's all the same concept, isn't it? And it all mutated over time. It started with this cool idea of like, let's lock in on the subject, and it just became a trashy soap by the end in pretty much all of those examples.
Yeah.
But I mean, if the Bill was to come back this week, if you're holding up the Bill against some of the American police dramas, you're producing a program that's only going to pale in comparison. I think the Bill's very much of its time, and the fact of that comparison point with dramas that come after it didn't exist, that it can be compared. Because I can't think of anything else that was a police drama around this time that was as constant and as everywhere as the Bill was. As you say, it was a soap in a way based around police. But there was nothing else of the time for that comparison point. Like Benno said, there was London's Burning, but that was the fire brigade and whatnot. Whereas the Bill, I think now, putting that up against, some of the more serious police, even something that come after this, like Cracker or whatnot. I mean, I know Cracker came a little bit before the Bill, but the seriousness and the undertones of that, even a touch of Frost, if you're comparing the two, you've kind of got something that did have to veer into the soap kind of narrative.
Did you also notice who's appearing on screen there as well? Lisa Riley.
Mandy Dingle. Yeah.
Star of You Being Framed.
Yes.
I think to your point is well, Liam, it's in like a very particular place as well, and that it's got to be both things. It's got to be a soap that's gonna keep you coming back week to week, but it's also got to kind of, the episodes are all pretty much standalone, aren't they? Which is the same.
Yes, yeah.
That's what cop shows in America were during this period. NYPD Blue wasn't The Wire. NYPD Blue was you could put it on, watch one episode, and never see another one all season, and you were fine. Yeah. It's like, it's kind of got to do those two things as well.
Yeah, very much so. So yeah, moving on with TV, we're going to finish off here with, we'll do both of these together. 2 game shows, very short-lived game shows. The first one being The Vault, which was a game show presented by Melanie Sykes. And this is the first time I think I've ever watched this game show. I have no recollection of this whatsoever. But I was absolutely blown away at the prize money that was on offer for this game show. JP, being our game show aficionado, are you familiar with The Vault? Do you have any memories of The Vault?
None at all. I mean, other than the fact that Melanie Sykes feels like that's very early 2000s. There was like, we're not a million miles removed from Boddington's adverts, are we? And the like there as well. But what's the prize money for this again?
Well, the previous episode, someone won 700 grand as a rollover.
That's outrageous.
I don't think anybody had won it. Which
that is insane
for a quiz show at that point. Is
He's only millionaire, obviously, putting that out there, isn't he? There's only that at this point.
You win an ashtray on 15-1. I'll always bring that up. A glorified ashtray. And that's rock hard to do.
What do we reckon on site?
So subject to my family, my granddad went out in round 1, JP. I can't talk about that.
What do we reckon on site? Bit ropey at the start, but grew into it, lads. I thought she was a bit ropey, and I know it's not a forte, the quiz show, but I don't know. She was better with Des and Mel, weren't it, Liam? She found the true, like, what's the spiritual job with just being a good talk show host for me, Sykes. But this, I'd never heard of it. I thought the concept was bananas as well, where you had to ask people on the phones the jobs, or people in the It's wild. Like, to be honest, I had a hard time keeping up with what the actual fucking rules were in it. It was just that weird.
But it was also like an hour and a half episode, and you think primetime hour and a half game show on
it's 2 hours,
TV.
Isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's
like
it's unheard.
That's like Italian telly, mate. Italian telly. I'm sure I've brought this up loads of times. There's a program called Scomiciamo C'è, which is basically You Bet in Italian, and it was 4 hours long. 4 hours live for that on a Saturday night. That was like an hour and a half is too long. Like, Jesus, an hour, I think you're pushing it. But there's stuff that you can see, stuff that's kind of leading to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Like, there is things where it's not there, but you think, okay, that's the thing they're building to. And clearly, if you do give away 700 grand, you might just give away $1 million, and that's your hook. Because I always think that's the thing about Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. It's the word millionaire. That's what people remember. They never even said the who wants to be a. It just became millionaire. That's what it was known to by people. And I think something like The Vault just should have gone that bit further.
Also, Millionaire, I think I said it a few times. That and The Weakest Link, you can tell they were the biggest shows because how good were the PlayStation 1 games of them too. That was a big thing for me, getting Millionaire on PlayStation 1.
Easy to replicate, wasn't it?
Yeah. Unbelievable, like unreal. Loved it.
I remember this period in time. The big thing was DVD game shows. That you would answer the questions with your remote control. Interactive DVDs. And I think that kind of played in with so many of the game shows being created and put on TV. So they could license it for games and stuff like that. But yeah, so that was The Vault. Then moving on to the last game show and the last program, a part of the television pillar, and that is Grand Slam. Now, I cannot wait to talk about this. If JP refers to 15-1 as the G1 of game shows, I'd love to know what this is. Super J Cup. I don't know, but Matty, first time ever seen. No,
listen, right. This is honestly right. I want to watch more of these. This was insane. Carol Vorderman hosting. James Richardson giving like the my head was gone. JP when I see Jimbo. What the fuck? But how good with the Gavin on this? Both of the guys were great. These were clever people. How fucking quick were these coming thick and fast? I want to watch more of these because I was fucking hooked with this, lads. I tell you,
it's the fact that as part of the Grand Slam, which they're obviously like. I mean, it's a common enough name for whether tennis, rugby, and everything else of like, doing a big clean sweep. So it's like the game show of game shows. So all the people on there won loads of game shows. They've got to put a grand in themselves, like which you're not doing on the vault. She's not ponying up 350,000 to win 750,000 back. But you think you got a grand in there as well? You'd be livid if you lost, wouldn't you? If you just have.
So you got to back yourself.
You really have to back yourself for this. It's very much like the chase, isn't it? This is like a precursor to what the chase ends up being, where people who won all of these quizzes were like celebrities in their own right.
Yeah.
And I know because I've seen the Irish bloke from the chase when we've taken our lads to the swimming classes all the time, and he's there with his kids, and it's just like every time it's like, that's weird. Him on there, like, because he literally could appear on the telly that's on in the same place any moment now as well. But yeah.
But this was as well, like when you watched it was dead serious. It was proper though for me. I was hooked watching this that last round. Like it was took dead serious, which you don't usually get in quiz. There's always someone like a host trying to like ham it up or comedy it up and like geg in. This was proper. I loved it. Really like this.
Is this the Ring of Honor of quiz shows? It's like, what if we take away the glitz and glamour of WWE and what they want on telly? Let's just have the actual good workers, the actual good quiz people,
the clever people.
Although saying that, they've got Carol Vorman there, so I don't know. That may be. She was like, they were trying to get it over in the papers at this point, weren't they? It was like, oh, all the students fancy her type of thing. Like this alternate kind of like hot girl, bit like I don't know, like when they dress someone up as a goth in wrestling, like Lita or Paige or something like that.
So do we think here that they signed James Richardson to a long-term deal, lost the rights to Italian football, and just kind of had to give him something to do?
Had to give him a job. He should do World's Strongest Man and that, didn't he, as well? That was a different station, though. He popped up on that before. He was on BT and TNT and all that, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Always criminally underused, though. One of the best hosts, best guys of all time.
He's incredible.
Unreal.
He's incredible on TNT Sports when he hosts like Italian football and they're bouncing around the channels. And obviously, I always think of his podcast work now and everything else. But
Guardian, weren't it?
It's clear they've just got they've got Vorderman and they've got Richardson signed. It's like, what we're going to do? We're just going to team them up, and they're going to present this completely straight faced as well. There's the entire time. It's like fair fucks to them. Like for it doing, I'm just annoyed as a concept this didn't work. That just slightly saddens me because, like you guys, I just want to see more of this.
I want to watch it.
How long does it last?
I'm guessing a year for this. I mean, I'll just have a quick look.
I think it was one and only series, and the whole premise. You had to pay to enter, £1,000 to enter, which made up the prize fund, which is why they refer to it as a grand slam. Single elimination as well, like ECWA Super 8. This is you've got single elimination, and the guy who goes through is the guy who answers his questions.
King of Europe Cup
with the most time remaining. It's as you say, it's really his boots and trunks.
It is
game show. This is, isn't it? It's like no glitz, no glamour on this, but I think it's a great concept. And as JP says, it's one that I don't understand why. Would it be too intense and too? I don't like saying this, but too clever to have on that these quiz winners are going neck and neck at prime time. Yeah. You know, is that one of the things, or is it a case of you got to run out of game show winners that you can't really keep it going for a while?
But they made that work, don't they? Isn't that like essentially what like an Eggheads is, or like there's a few shows like that now, isn't it? Where it's like the best brains going against each other. It was just maybe the packaging on it more than anything.
And even Beat the Chaser, that sort of Chaser spin-off where they go up against each other as well on here. I don't know if I should spoil what happens in the final of all of this, because this is like first rounds that we're seeing the episode.
No, don't spoil it, JP, because I want to watch it.
Thank
you.
No spoilers for the show from 21 years ago.
I just feel like they ultimately missed the trick in like not having series after this where you would have like a wild card, like the darts thrower from Bullseye who won it is an entrant, or the guy who won the Krypton Factor is an entrant, but it's just questions being asked, but they don't know he's won that game show. They just know he's a game show winner, and they see the other guy who's like one mastermind going up against him. I mean, that was an angle they could have done, but I don't remember this at all. But watching it now, I think it's a really good concept that I'm surprised didn't last.
Could have been an international World Cup, all the winners against each other. You know,
Yeah,
could have,
go
took
to
over the
crack
world.
the states. Yeah, that's it. Benno, that's what we want to take.
I just
it
read
to.
there was a states version, but there was no one good on it. I was hoping it was like hosted by someone wacky. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Will Ferrell or something. I don't know.
Mike Hadley, probably.
I've just seen who did present it, and it was comedian Dennis Miller. So
I didn't recognise the name. Was he in it?
Yeah, he was like he was kind of
Guest hosted Raw.
Yeah, he did host Raw. Yeah.
He was kind of like a he's like a Republican comedian, wasn't he?
Yeah.
JP, is that? Yeah, he was like
a shock jock.
like a shock jock, like Rush Limbaugh, sort of.
Also had a supporting role in the 1995 film Disclosure with Demi Moore and Michael Douglas. How do I remember that?
And he was also a commentator on NFL Monday Night Football for a couple of seasons as well. The third man in the booth. Yeah, brilliant. So that completes the TV pillar. And I am now going to pass the baton over to Benno, who's now going to go through music of August 2003.
Thank you, DJ Liam. I'll do my best to fill your... sorry, DJ Doom, to fill your considerable boots. But yeah, I'm excited for this one because, like I said, this was the soundtrack to many a night out for me, and probably a night out for you, I'd say, Matty, as well.
100%.
On the slide during your 6 film years. But yeah, they had a top 10 in music for the chart from the 10th to the 16th of August 2003. We have number 10, the song that is still on all playlists that all shite DJs will play, Crazy in Love by Beyonce. I've been pretending to like that and dance to that for 20 years now. I'm in Heaven, Jason Nevins in /UKNY featuring Holly James, number 9. Number 8, Never Gonna Leave Your Side, Daniel Bedingfield. Number 7, Something Beautiful, Robbie Williams. Number 6, Frontin', Pharrell featuring Jay-Z, the one I most recognised on here. Number 5, Never Leave You. Is that how I should pronounce it? I didn't know what that was until I actually played it back today by Lumidity and realised what song that was. Number 4, 4-Minute Warning, not 3. Although it is 2003. Mark Owen, maybe he was watching some Raw at that point. Number 3, another one. As soon as I listened to it, I was like, "Oh, this song! Hooray, hooray! It's a Cheeky Holiday" by the Cheeky Girls. Number 2, I think we'll spend most of this talking about the Scouse anthem of Pretty Green Eyes by Ultrabeat, which in Liverpool had been out for about 5 years by this point, I'm pretty sure. Or at least it felt like it, because you couldn't move without a Scouse girl in a pair of boots dancing on a table to that. And number 1, Breathe by Blue Cantrell featuring Sean Paul, with, of course, the What's the Difference Dr. Dre soundtrack that I'm sure me and Liam could get into as well. But where do we start, boys? Matty, it's probably got to be Pretty Green Eyes.
Got to be Pretty Green Eyes, mate.
I'm not even joking when I say it. Like even now, like that was literally everywhere before. I might be wrong. Maybe Liam can correct me on it, but I'm certain there was like almost a demo version or a different version of this that was on in every Scouse club, bar, every place I go on a 30 to get a pound a pint. Like this song was everywhere. It was. Yeah. You can't understate how gigantic it was in Liverpool, Matty, before it even hit the charts. It was huge.
It was just, as you say, Ben, it felt like it was out for so long, and it did, but it got the whole country, though, didn't it? And got, obviously, to number 2. Yeah, did it get to number 1? I'm pretty sure it did. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it did get to number 1. But just the thing of it, Ben, there was a girl in our year who used to wear green eyeshadow, and we just called her Pretty Green Eyes. That's what the song resonated. We literally just named her after the song, and she was fine with it. Like, it was a part, as you say, you can't undersell. You could not avoid this song.
We're underselling it and saying it.
We really
bigger than
are.
we're saying.
Yeah, it's like.
Was it the same anywhere else? JP, Liam, like was it like as big a deal?
I do remember it. It was kind of that period of like dance one-off song, like Clubland the CD, that you would have an artist with one song that they would dine out on. But surprisingly, I don't know if you two know this, it's actually a cover version. It's originally a Happy Hardcore song that was released in 1996. Which sounds completely different to this and is a little bit more rigorous, let's put it that way. But yeah, 1996, it was first released by Force and Styles, and this is the cover version of it. Ultrabeat being a Liverpudlian band as well. So I think
Mike the Scala,
I didn't
Mike,
Yeah.
you're not only from here, Benno. Mike,
Oh.
I've seen him DJ in
didn't know.
Society at his. I had his peak run like in Society in
Perfect.
town. Mike the Scala, like big,
yeah, Mike the
big.
Scala.
He used to his family used to own a cafe as well off Bold Street, Ben. Oh yeah, proper like. Think so.
Some
Yeah,
proper
no,
local
genuinely
knowledge
think
there.
so. Yeah, it is.
Looking at this and some notes about the video. Just for you, Benno and Matty. 2 locations were used in this video for the filming. Let me know if you know. any of them.
Barcelona, is it? Is the Barcelona
I'm
in
guessing
there?
Garlands.
No, Baby Blue Bar on the Albert Dock,
Yeah,
That's Revolution, isn't it, Matt? Is that
that's Revolution.
in the
Yeah,
Albert?
that's Revolution.
and I've even been to this place, Leo Casino on the Queen's Dock.
That's still there.
That's still going.
Me and Steph went not long ago.
Yeah, those are the 2
Unbelievable.
locations this video was filmed in.
I had a
Absolutely
Christmas
love
night
that.
out there once. What a place. That's amazing. But yeah, gigantic song. I had to go there first. And like, it's going to be in my head now for the rest of the week. It won't take long though. I'll get in a cab in Liverpool and it'll still be playing. It is literally.
Yeah.
This song is 2003. 1,000,000%,
Yes.
I would say.
Yes.
I was disappointed by the number 1, Liam. I've never liked this song. I've never liked this Blue Cantrell and Sean Paul. For me, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe title of the show, Time, it felt way too soon to do. It's not even a sample. It's just over the What's the Difference beat, innit? Like, at the time, I was like, he's just doing the Dr. Dre song again. Like, 3 years later, I guess it was maybe 4 years, wasn't it? Because it was 2001, 99, because the name always makes it feel like it was
99,
later than
I think
it
it
was.
was.
So it's a bit of a wait, but like it's just the same song redone. Like it's so annoying that it's a bigger hit too. Because I can't stand Sean Paul, poor man Shaggy. I don't know. Your thoughts, Liam?
Totally agree. This is Dr. Dre. What's the difference with Exhibit and Corrupt to me? And when this come out, that's immediately what I thought of, and I completely had my back up against this because it was a watered down, commercialized song using a beat that I liked. But I think in hindsight, looking back, the world did move a lot slower than it does now.
100%.
In the fact of, we were saying that Dr. Dre 2000 come out in 99. By the time we got to that, it was probably 2001, 2002 when that was in the charts. So you are right in saying that it didn't have that gap between that coming out and it being used as a sample in this, that it felt like it was of a different era. It was very much that beat that you recognise from 18 months ago being used for another song and a lesser song as well. I totally was, no, it was commercialised rubbish to me.
But
We
this though, lads,
both
again,
sound like our
sorry,
dads here though. Because it's the type of thing my dad would say about rap in general. They're just repurposing other people's songs. They haven't got the talent. They're just rapping over songs I know from the 80s. But it was, like you say, it's time, I think, Matt.
But this now, what you're saying, ultimately, this is another one. You can't undersell how gigantic this song was, though, lads. Like
It was big. It was.
it was.
still
You
is.
could not. Yeah, you couldn't avoid it. It's on any like R&B like tribute night or reunion night they have on. This is always a big crowd pleaser that comes on, and I don't mind it. I actually don't mind it. I don't love it. Don't hate it. Don't mind it though. So it's
I think it's been drilled into my head through hearing this so many times. Even I might well have heard it this week. Like it feels like the kind of thing that appears if got Kiss on in the car, and it will randomly appear because it's just an easy kind of like crowd. It's an easy kind of like crowd pleasing song that people like. I'm probably like you, mate. I don't have, I don't hate it necessarily. Like it is
wouldn't
what
put
it
it
is.
on in the house, but if it come on, if I was out and had a couple, I wouldn't mind it. That's
Yeah.
fine for me.
To that point, that's a good segue into. We'll go down to the number 10, Crazy in Love, Beyonce. That has got to be top 1 most overplayed songs. Between that
Of all
and
time.
the Bonnie and Clyde one with Jay-Z, like, I am just, like, that is the song that, like, you're having a night out, you're in a good mood, everyone you're with is dancing. Because you don't want to be the miserable one, you join in the dancing. But I'm just thinking in my head, I fucking hate this song. And you're forced to have fun to it. It's just, how is it so prevalent still? I'm guessing, like, it being number 10 here means it came out like a year before. And it had been number 1 for the whole year before that point. I haven't read up on it, but, like, it's so prevalent, that song, to this day. You go out any city centre on Saturday night, you would hear that. You'll probably hear this 5 times. Like, it's such a big, it's a crowd pleaser, isn't it? Mostly for the girls and stuff, but
it's a wedding song.
just to jump in, this is it's 6 weeks in the charts, and before that, it was number 1 for 3 weeks. So it's already done its main event stretch, and it's working its way back down.
Beyonce's debut song as well, isn't it? Of all, first ever like
solo.
I didn't realise
she's
that.
ever brought out. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Okay.
That's something.
first ever one. But I'm same as you, Benno. I fucking hate it. Like Jay-Z's got a good
And I
verse.
probably didn't
don't get me
once
wrong,
upon a
I like it.
time.
I
Yeah, the JD
fucking
verse is
hate
good.
it.
And I probably
Jay-Z
rapped
verse.
around. I probably stood opposite you in a club, and we both
and
been
rapping,
rapping the
yeah.
Jay-Z verse at each
Yeah.
other, pretending we're having a good time. Like, 100%.
But yeah, I fucking hate it.
I thought
This is
Beyonce
up
was
there-
wearing a Roma shirt in there for a second.
This is up there once again. You say, but I'm the same with Dirty, Christine and Redman, and Fat Man Scoop. All these that come on. They're like,
Remember the
they're
first time you heard Fat Man Scoop in the Crazy House? It was like, what's this amazing remix? How great is this? That was 22 years ago.
It is. If you don't need a piss, you still go in the bog because it's fucking one of them. Just get out of there. Honestly.
Done.
Oh.
What Lumidee was another one that stuck out to me. Liam, Never Leave You. Again, by name, I wouldn't have known what that was. And then as soon as I played it, I was like, oh, okay, I know the remix is what I know from this with Busta Rhymes and Fabulous.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Was there an
Fabulous, yeah.
ODB version as well, Liam? I remember
The one I know is the Fabulous Busta Rhymes one.
That's the big one, isn't it? That's the one
remix,
they
yeah,
officially released. But again,
I don't
this
mind.
one,
I don't mind this at all. I do not mind this.
I
at all.
like this. Yeah, I like this.
And
it's a good song.
There's always been an urban myth surrounding this, is that you listen to the song and people accuse it of being out of tune, the vocals and the beat in the background. Apparently, she did the vocals for this song to a completely different beat, and then just before it got released, the producer changed the beat to the vocals. That's why it sounds out of tune. How true that is, I don't know, because I still think it works like this, being like half a step.
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like what RZA would do with like Blue Raspberry or Tequila and people like that, where it would be against the beat, but it'd work because it was that blend of like two different things. Yeah, it's totally purposeful move. Yeah,
Well, this is proper like
cameo from The Wire there as well.
Bodie from The Wire, yeah.
Yeah.
It was during this period, wasn't it? Though everyone from The Wire started to turn up
yeah.
in the background of music videos.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is that period that we're saying I'm in sixth form of me starting to go into town, and like these are the songs that were only getting played. We go like the Camel Club, Benno, the
And it hasn't
Marquee,
changed.
R&B, like rap took over though. This is took over from new metal in the charts in the UK, and all you had was R&B and hip hop.
We won.
Just living it.
But at what cost? Like that's what I
Living
found
it, like, every day of our lives, just loving it, yeah.
And on that note, another good Jay-Z verse fronting Pharrell and Jay-Z.
Nonchalant in front of an audience. Is that what we're going with?
Is Pharrell? Yeah, here's a question for you, Liam. Is Pharrell actually good? Like, I think he's a great. I think NERD were a good act. I think the Neptunes were good producers or clever producers more than good producers. I would say, like when they were early on doing like stuff with Noriega, and it was all right, but it wasn't really for me. And then it became the sound of this period, didn't it? Pharrell production is literally what you associate with hip hop pretty much during this period, and yeah, he kind of used it to launch himself as a singer. But is he a good singer? I don't know.
I always liked Pharrell as the producer, and that first NERD album I really liked. It was like the blend of like rock and hip hop that there was nothing like at the time, but the production was really good on it. And I think this kind of benchmarked his movement into a more popular sound. This Beautiful with Snoop Dogg, which came afterwards.
I like that one. I like
that song with Robin Thicke as well.
Blade Lines.
No, the one before that. Wanna love you, girl. Wanna love you, girl. That's like basically, as Benno says, it's very much like I want to become a pop star now or a singer. I'm transcending what I did before, and I don't think NERD or the Neptunes really did anything similar to what Lap Dance was and In Search Of. After this, it was kind of like their benchmark into this kind of world. So I don't mind this song, but it is very much a song that says I'm not the artist I was before. This is kind of my sound. Yeah.
I'm now a producer for hire. You know, Britney Spears wants a beat. Christina Aguilera, Snoop Dogg, whoever it is, wants a beat. Justin Timberlake, he's the big beneficiary of it, isn't he? Yeah. During this period of working with these types of producers, totally. Yeah. You big Pharrell man, Matty? I imagine you would be. Big star.
No, fucking hate him. Do
you?
Yeah, I hate him. Yeah. No, genuinely, like, once again, love the producing side of it. Obviously, can't deny that. Like, Lap Dance Liam, like one of the greatest, like, fucking beat songs of all time in any genre for me. But
it's amazing. Who's the rapper at the end? The white guy, like he's so
MC Harvey, and is it
the one good verse he ever does? Like it nails it, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, fucking
MC Harvey. Think of me at the Harley or something, isn't it? Like,
you think of Harvey, think of a Harley.
You think of a Harley, real denim. Vader's great on that too.
Yeah,
with Lap Dance, it's always one of them songs that around this time, being 17, going into 18, it was when I first was going to clubs and stuff, rock clubs at that as well. And Lap Dance and Rock Superstar by Cypress Hill were the two songs that included rapping that was acceptable, and an Eminem song that were being acceptable to be played at a rock night. It was them three songs. You were never getting any deviation from them three songs.
If you were dead lucky, you might get gravel pits, but they'd have to be pretty forward thinking.
Yeah.
Go on.
Say producer wise, brilliant, but like singing could never like get into him as a singer ever. You know what I mean? Like just over pushed for me.
But he pushed himself, didn't he? That's what he did.
Exactly. Yeah. He was over. Like even Happy about a decade ago. How big was that song off the? Was it off one of the Disney films? Like just
Despicable Me Too.
Yeah. Just how big was that though? Like.
But I get the thought process. Why make other people stars? You can be one yourself, and fair play to him. You made it. It was like a trade-off. Oh, I'll give you this beat if you let me sing on it. And yeah, you know, whatever, it worked. I'll go to the other stuff in the top 10. Let's go to the boring white men. Daniel Bedingfield, Robbie Williams, and Mark Owen. Let's do them together. Any thoughts on those two lads? I was shocked to see Mark Owen there so far up, and I didn't recognise the song from the name. And again, once I played it, I was like, "Oh, that one, that was Mark Owen." Yeah.
Good, Liam. Good concept, though, isn't it? Do you reckon a good concept?
Mark Owen?
Yeah, 4-minute warning.
It's kind of IWC 21 seconds, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I liked it. I thought this was his best. Was it his only solo? Well, it's the only one I can remember. This was his best for me. Like so.
What about Clementine? What a song!
That was big.
Oh no, I'm not into that one, Liam. This over Clementine for me, for sure.
I can see JP being a Mark Owen man.
Nah. It's take that or nothing. Really, although I'd saying that, I saw Robbie Williams when I went to Live Aid, and I thought he was a hell of a showman. But these were these were like singles runs that were doomed to failure, like Mark Owen and everything else. And it feels weird compared to the other songs that we've looked at. How this looks very mid-90s to me. It might be the resolution on the screen for all I can tell for it, but it does feel like it's stuff from like the mid-90s as opposed to the early 2000s. Like, and it was one of the songs where I had to go to Vicky to ask her, like, "Have you heard of this? Have you heard of this?" And she was like, "Oh yeah, heard of these." And 4-minute warning, she was like, "No idea of it." And it was like I could barely remember it at all. And like you said earlier on, Benno, when you said I heard 4-minute warning, I thought 3-minute warning. And then I just started thinking of that angle that they did at the wedding with Eric Bischoff, which has nothing to do with this song in any way, shape, or form.
I think Mark Owen understood the assignment though, because I think this song is 4 minutes, whereas the 3-minute warning song is all 5 minutes 30 on YouTube. What the fuck's that about? Just make it 3 minutes, Jim Johnson. What are you doing? It's right there. Any thought on the other two, Daniel Bedingfield or what was the other one? Robin,
I'm a Bedingfield guy, but this is his worst one. Obviously, you know, got to get through this. Is an absolute all timer on all my playlists. Fucking love that. Even was it? Oh, the Slowy. I don't wanna run away. If you're not the one, that's the one. Oh, absolute fucking.
We're all singing. We're all singing tonight, aren't we?
Do you check Liam? That's like. If it weren't for Steph picking the thing, I thought that was going to be our wedding song, and she shot that one down. Like so, that was going to be. Love a bit of Bedingfield, bit of James Dean, Liam, deep cut from Bedingfield there.
The only thing out of this chart I want to point out before we move on is number 9. Who knew that Jason Nevins had another top 10 song?
Not me.
Not me.
But it also felt to me like the biggest crime of all for this one as well.
Oh, I remember it now. You put it on. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember this now. You put it on, yeah.
Because
Wow.
I love that SWV song. I love the fuck out of that. That was an
How good is
incredible
JP?
song. I don't like the Michael. I don't like the song they sample. I think they improve on that Michael Jackson. I can't remember the name of it now off the top of my head today.
Human nature.
Human nature, yeah.
Human nature.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of that, but the
Here's-
SWV right here, I'm like, oh, it's incredible.
Here's a question, Benno. What's the better use of that Michael Jackson sample? This SWV or Nas?
Oh, it's got to be Nas, hasn't it? Come on. Got to go IWC. Nas got in his sampling bag in that period, didn't he? But yeah, that's kind of it really from the top 10, unless there's anything else anyone would comment on. Cheeky Girls, any takes on that? Can't believe it.
Horrendous.
That was a proper...
How were they so big? There's like no justification why
Drunk
they're
people on holiday in the summer.
Aqua.
August, didn't it? Yeah, Aqua too. Aqua, that's
I mean,
the fan base.
I will always argue Turn Back Time by Aqua's a good song. From Sliding Doors.
That's when they got
movie.
serious, didn't they?
Yeah, I think that's a good song. Whereas the Cheeky
John Pollock
Girls,
at back
I mean,
in. He's a big Aqua guy, even to this day. Yeah,
Incredible.
But I was going to say, you had a quick note in here. Albums released in August 2003. Don't have anyone of the highlights. Don't think it was on the list, but I had on here Liam, Visions of Gandhi, Jedi Mind Tricks.
Jedi Mind Tricks.
The one
I did see.
where Just Salar's left, hasn't he? But there's still as many long words in there to make you feel they're intelligent. Words about weapons and gods and things like that. Big fan of them during this period. Don't know if there's anything there stood out to anyone else.
T.I.'s trap music.
I knew you'd mention that. I knew you'd mention that, Liam.
I would have thought I'd had that later. I would have had that like 5 years later. Like, I can't believe that's 2003.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can we just go? Sorry, can we just go back to the Cheeky Girls 1 second? Who was the MP that was dating one of them? JP.
Lembit OP.
I knew you'd know that. Yeah, I knew you'd know that. If I had that a gun to my head and they said you've got to ring someone and you've got to answer that question, I would have rang you and you would have saved my life, my friend.
Of all of the albums on there, I always thought Youth and Young Manhood by Kings of Leon, because that just felt like it just felt massive at the time.
And my brother would be happy. Kraftwerk's on there. He fucking loves them. Like
that Snow Patrol album on there as well.
Yeah,
was massive of his time as well.
Absolutely.
Some decent albums there. That Bronx album's a good punk album. The Broadcast album on there as well.
Avenged Sevenfold, Liam. They're proper like in the early infancies. They're like proper hardcore back then. Like
to be fair, that first Avenged Sevenfold record, Waking the Fallen, very much is akin to like Guns N' Roses, and I remember buying that at the time and not minding it. The band that they've become, I have no connection to whatsoever. It's not my sort of thing. But I remember buying that album and really, really liking it at the time.
Different, man.
No,
But did anybody watch the MTV Video Music Awards we got attached to it as well? I watched a few highlights. Trivia question. Ask Matty. What's this MTV Music Awards famous for in 2003?
I mean, it's the obvious one, isn't it? It's Britney and Madonna and Christina, isn't it? Come on.
Yeah,
I mean, a sixth form young lad is always going to remember that, aren't you? Let's be honest.
How many times did you rewind that tape, mate?
Hey, I had the Sky Planet then, so I can pause and rewind on just on my TV.
I watched a little highlight video of it because there's that. Obviously, it's this period. So Chris Rock's the presenter. Obviously, he's very good at the job. He's got a good joke in there about the Olsen twins being there, and he's like, "Yeah, we're seating all these celebrities away from each other. We're keeping Eminem away from Britney Spears, and we're keeping the Olsen twins down here. So R. Kelly is 3 floors up there." I'm like, "That's 2003. Like, did people know then? Apparently they did. But yeah, they were the most notable things on it. There wasn't much from a music point of view, but it was coming out of that rap rock period, really, where a lot of the pop stars are starting to do hip hop and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A few feuding people in the crowd. That was the main take side on that.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to see Linkin Park winning Best Rock Video for Somewhere I Belong, and deservedly so for the lads. So yeah.
Didn't they get back together this week, or didn't they announce it?
No, it's like a proper it's like a proper teaser, Benno. Like you'd see something off like the Wyatt Six or something. It's like they had a countdown clock, didn't they, Liam? You've been following it. They had a countdown clock,
didn't he?
And then they reset it to go back up again. So I haven't followed of what's but he's very much lives on the internet, Mike Shinoda. So we'll see what happens with the lads. But yeah, I don't know who they're gonna get in.
My kind of guy.
Love him, absolutely love him.
A 2003 kind of man. But there we go.
Yeah.
That's that's music taken care of, which moves us to film, which I think is you, Matthew.
It is me, guys. So it's in the post edit, we're going to get the Barry Norman coming over my my voice here as I count down the top 10 movies from 29th of August 2003 through to obviously the end of the month, which is only 2-3 days later. Number 10, we have Freddy versus Jason. Number 9, Rugrats Go Wild. Number 8, Hollywood Homicide. Number 7, Spy Kids 3D Game Over. Number 6, the Lizzie McGuire movie. Coming in at number 5, Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. At number 4, Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, The Cradle of Life. Number 3, Jeepers Creepers 2. Number 2, American Pie, The Wedding. And at number 1, it's Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. Now, first and foremost, lads, right off the bat here, I've got to be honest, I've never seen any of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Like, JP, seriously, like, I know the Lord, like, are they good? Are they genuinely good?
Well, it depends if you're asking me, if you're asking Mark Commode, if there are any. Universally praised, and there was a lot of stuff about it that was really like kind of like, because obviously it was based on a theme park ride, but it was about launching a few like Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley, and it was Johnny Depp going. I'm gonna say like this was like his big, like he'd done other big commercial stuff before, but this was the film that kind of like cemented him really as like an A-list star per se. I didn't mind it at the time. I hated all of the sequels. I think all the sequels are just rubbish, like just overblown SFX nonsense.
Oh wait,
really.
Is this not a sequel? Is this the first one?
This is the first one.
Oh,
so this is like, this is the first, the first one. I remember like going to the cinema and thinking, yeah, this is a lot of fun and it's all very silly, and yeah, he's doing Keith Richards and everything else, but it was very much like, and we've just seen his name come across the screen there. This is very much Jerry Bruckheimer without Don Simpson. And the coke and all the madness that comes with Don Simpson and everything else. And instead it's Jerry Bruckheimer, who is a very, if nothing else, an incredibly efficient and astute producer of blockbuster films. He knew what he was doing. Like, it comes to things like The Rock and whatnot, he just knew exactly how to make money with a film. And that's what this did. And it was like kind of very well cast for the time. It just, the sequels disappear up their own arse. They just sort of go
JP,
bloated nonsense.
And once again, I haven't seen a minute of any of them. Does Sparrow end up a heel? He starts off as a heel, but gets that over determined babyface. I can imagine. I can definitely imagine that.
At worst,
how is he always a tweener?
Yeah,
he's just a lovable
rogue. It's like the first, because I do like this first film. I just assume with it because it sounds like a sequel, doesn't it?
It does. The Curse of the Black Pearl.
But like, yeah, he's a complete force of nature in this. He's brilliant. He's charismatic. He does absolutely carry the film because Orlando Bloom's not got him, is he? But like, that's the problem. You're absolutely right, Matty, because every other film is like, well, let's do that, but more of it. Let's turn him into Russell Brand, and he's like literally on every scene. If he's not there, it's Pucci. We've got to ask where he is. He's just overbearing, and it's not. They don't understand what worked about the first film, I think. And I did actually at the time like it when it came out.
Yeah, I would always recommend going back and listening to the Mark Commode reviews of these. And he's gone back and he's reviewed some of these. I know he recently re-reviewed Sex and the City 2, but he was someone who from the very beginning was just like, I hate these films. I hate everything about them. And that was always the thing that stuck in my mind because I was like so big into listening to Mark Commode. And this is an era pre-podcast. So if you wanted to hear it, you had to listen to Radio 5 on a Friday afternoon. And that was the only time you were ever going to actually hear the reviews and stuff like that. And sometimes there'd be at big sporting events. So I can remember him being at an Ashes series in 2005, doing reviews as there's like an Australian collapse and Stuart Broad ripping, not Stuart Broad, I think it might have been Simon Jones ripping through the Australian. And he's just like, why is there screaming? What's going on? And he hasn't got a fucking clue. There's all this stuff. But yeah, his Pirates of the Caribbean 2 review is something that's like a bit of lore.
I'll have to get on that, JP.
Yeah, have a watch of it.
I will.
Easy enough to watch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll have to go to, and I've just checked the cast in this, so I'm throwing it to the guys below for video viewers. the film on the list that I've never even heard of at number 8 is Hollywood Homicide. Have you guys seen the cast of this, lads?
I've seen the film.
How have you not seen it?
Honestly, I didn't know it existed. The two leads, and then I've looked at the cast of Master P, Corrupt, Smokey Robinson, Andre 3000. But the main two stars are Harrison Ford and Josh Hartnett in a budget action.
Well, hang on. You missed that Lou Diamond Phillips as well. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, lads. But how many fucking... What's going on here, lads? I've never even heard of it.
I mean, we know what you're doing tomorrow after bashing Berlin. Like,
yes.
What's going on here?
Well, I mean...
This feels like a rip-off of The Hard Way. Maybe it was just me. Am I right about this? And I love The Hard Way. James Woods and Michael J. Fox, and he's impersonating a cop. And this just feels the same version. At that period of time when they wanted to push Josh Hartnett, who's, he plays a dad in films now, for God's sakes. Like, at time of recording, he's out in Trap, isn't it? The M. Night Shyamalan film. But he was doing, like, they thought, oh, this guy's going to be the next big heartthrob. And it just never happened. As much as I love 30 Days of Night, and I think that's criminally underrated as a horror film, like, he looks like a child in this, doesn't he? Looks like he's about 16.
Yeah. It's like a hard...
I remember when this came out, day of release in the video shop, based on the cast alone, wanting to see this film. It's the villain in it's basically based around Suge Knight, isn't it? That's the film basically of its time. It's based around Suge Knight, but it's weird you saying that about Josh Hartnett. But at what point in his career was Harrison Ford in to go, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, he's always been like pretty straight-laced, like Ford, and not done stuff like this, hasn't he, Liam? And then in the end, when he goes back to all the sequels, he took the piss as he's older, basically into you saying, I'm doing it for the money. But at this time, it's random, innit? It's so random.
He was classic cultures between like his generation of like the leading men being like cool men in their 40s to the leading men in the 2000s and onwards being like 19, 20. It's like a big it's like a collage of those two eras. Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't think he had to do it or like latch on because he's Harrison Ford. Do you know what I mean? You forget these actors go through them stages and then come out the other side where like they can just swat these roles away. Like, it's weird. It's weird.
Yeah. It's weird. I mean, it died a death at the box office as well. And I think this is Ron Shelton, who, I remember from one of the best basketball films of all time, Blue Chips, starring Shaquille O'Neal and Nick Nolte. And that was his whole thing, Bull Durham. He made effectively sports films, Tin Cup with Kevin Costner. The thing about this was I always felt with Harrison Ford is he turned down the role in Traffic, the Steven Soderbergh remake of the TV series, and Michael Douglas got the role. And he never took risks with his career. He never took on roles that were challenging. He was very much just by the numbers stuff. And that's something that kind of came back, I think, to bite him later on when there wasn't that kind of fan service, because a lot of his films were just generic. I mean, I know people have got love for like Air Force One. I don't for this. But and Hollywood, this is the kind of film where you think, oh, if you pay him enough money, he'll do it. But it's not reinventing the wheel. It's exactly the type of film you'd expect it to be. And I don't know, like I've no desire to ever see this, to see Hollywood Homicide. I was just reminded, I was like, oh shit, that was a film. And I can remember reading the film magazines thinking, oh, this is going to be a big film, isn't it? And then it was just like came out and died a death.
I can kind of see his mindset in a way that like Josh Hartnett has just come off Pearl Harbor, Black Hawk Down. So like he's been in two really big films, and Harrison Ford was in that is it K-19, The Widowmaker or whatever it's called, which is a dreadful film. And it's also the time of the big like Odd Couple, Cop, Bad Boys had been out, Rush Hour had been out at that point. So I can understand from Harrison Ford looking at this and going, this might be something as a catalyst for the rest
way
of
back in.
But it was crap when I saw it. The novelty of a film with a load of rappers that I recognise kind of wore off very quickly.
Yeah, well, the 2000s is full of that, isn't it?
Yeah.
But boys, we haven't got a couple of sequels on this, but we've got a couple of trilogy films on this list coming in number 2 and number 5. I mean, we'll talk about number 5
and number 7, mate.
Sorry, JP, we've got a trilogy of trilogy films. Yes, Mike, we've got to talk firstly. The main man's behind you on your shelf himself is Terminator 3: Rise of the Machines. Like, I can't put into words how hyped I was for this film to come out. Like the song Gavin Rossdale with the Blue Man Group, Liam, you know, The Current. Love that song off this film. And then when this come out, like, and a female Terminator at the time broke the mold as well. Like I was, and you know what? I liked it, and I've watched it back recently, and you know what? It's still all right. It's obviously nowhere near the first two for me, but I was like, I enjoyed it, and I always liked the fact of like they went over budget, didn't they? And the scene where Arnie's on the crane, where he's literally goes through every building, and he just gives like the 10 million or whatever himself just to get it done. So like that just shows you how committed he was as well. But got a soft spot for this one, Liam, for sure.
I think the worst thing for this film is that it followed Terminator 2. I don't think standalone it's a bad movie. I think it's fine. And if it came out like, say, 2 years after Terminator 2, it would have been held in much higher regard than it actually was. I like it better than Genesis or Salvation as Terminator films.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's a good film. It's not Terminator 2. It's not the first Terminator either. But I think as a standalone film, it's absolutely fine. And I think he gets a bad rap, to be honest, because he doesn't live up to the two that came before it.
It's not James
Can I ask
Cameron.
JP? Can you pause us when the girl's on the screen at some point? Because I've got a point to make here. But like for me, it came too late. In that, like, I was so hyped after for Terminator 3 to ever exist. I remember when they put the ride came out, the Terminator 3D experience. And it was like, well, it's kind of a sequel, but I'd have to go to fucking Florida or wherever it was to actually see it. And then by the time they finally got here, it just maybe it was too late in my childhood. Maybe that was what part of the problem is with this. But like, I don't remember ever actually going to see it. In the end, the trailer's full with us here in the JP. It's just not showing her again.
It really is. It's refusing to show it.
Christina Loughlin, isn't it? That's the name, Christina.
Yeah,
Loughlin.
you might need to rewind to like somewhere near the start. But like, this is a bit of a grapple law for me because I
know what's coming.
I've said this before, and I must be the world's biggest idiot.
Come on.
But I honestly thought, and it was 2003 when this happened, I remember being in a car with my mates, driving, maybe we've been to Alton Towers or something like that, and I remember saying to one of my mates, like, oh, yeah, Terminator 3 is coming out, isn't it? But it's good, it's good to know that, like, Tamsin Outhwaite has made it in Hollywood. And he just looked at me and went, what do you mean? And I was like, Mel from EastEnders, she's in Terminator 3, isn't she? And he's like, what are you fucking talking about? That's not Tamsin Outhwaite. And I'd just seen a poster somewhere and just assumed that was it. You're telling me Matty doesn't look a little bit like
no,
it?
you know what? You're not fat. You know what? It's not the way shout looking and studying now, but it's just the fact of Tamsin.
It's the hair tie, but when she's in the red as well, in the red bodysuit in this, like you see it in the other bits in the trailer. Like to me, that's Tamsin Outhwaite in a superhero movie. If she ever got cast, that's exactly what she would look like. Tell me when I'm telling lies.
I don't think you're a million miles away from.
No, you're not.
I mean, the fact that she'll get cast in Hollywood.
That's what I'm saying. It's just the fact.
I'll just say, as we found out on previous episodes of Time, if Zoe Slater's being cast as the Bionic Woman, I don't think it's too far-fetched that Tamsin Outhwaite could appear in the Terminator movie.
It was one of when you're wrong and you argue with someone and then you find out you were wrong the whole time. It was that feeling. Must have argued for 10 minutes in the car before I found out. There was no. I think we had phones, but they didn't have the internet in 2003, so I had to be corrected the hard way. Yeah.
But I totally agree that the gap between this and Terminator 2 played a role in it. I mean,
totally.
Call me naive, but I believed Arnold Schwarzenegger's playing the gimmick, being the guy he was presented as. And if you think in the lead up to like Terminator 1, Terminator 2, you've got Conan the Barbarian, you've got films, you've got Commando, you've got films of those Predator, you've got that period between Terminator 2 and Terminator 3, you've got Junior, you've got Jingle All the Way, you've got him appearing in Batman. You believe in what Arnold Schwarzenegger is in a Terminator film. And as you get older as well, you no longer believe he's that character. So there is that element of like disengagement with the character and him playing him.
Yeah, for sure. It's I have to go and watch it back though, JP. What about your thoughts?
Does it feel a little bit like, to the point we made before with Harrison Ford, though? It's kind of like defeat. Like his proper career's over now. It's like, all right, go on, I'll play the hits for the kids. I'll do it now. After resisting.
I know what you're saying.
There was always the option though, would throw so much money at him. And I want to say, I can't remember the director's name off the top of my head, but I know he made a cracking film with Kurt Russell called Breakdown,
Oh, Breakdown's brilliant, JP,
one of the
honestly.
films kind of got me. I think it's just it's just a brilliant film. And I think with this, the problem is it's not James Cameron, who, for any failings we have with him as a scriptwriter, knows how to make action sequences and action films and get people engaged into it. And here, you're hiding to nothing. You're trying to follow it up. It's like David Fincher trying to follow up. And obviously, you're going to have studio interference as well. But it feels like the Alien 3 production. And you've got it here for Terminator 3 as well. And we're saying this at time of recording. There's next month in September, there's a new Terminator film coming out. They're always going to go back to it just because of the IP. Yeah, Terminator Zero, I want to say that it's called. I've seen it appear on IMDb. I've looked at it on there and I was like, oh, okay, will I watch this? And I went, not if I'm paying money for it, then I won't.
The last one?
Sugar free as well.
That deserves it. That deserved that, Liam. That was a good one, that. Right, we're going back for this trilogy. We're going finally to American Wedding.
Grapple Civil War.
Benno, come on. You tell me why it's shit, then go on.
I don't know. It's the one. I'm so glad they did the reunion because it made it up to me. This is the one, like, one is all-time classic. Two we'll disagree on.
Two's amazing, Benno.
It's you. You like the worst one. Of course you do. This one's the one where it was just like, half the cast don't come back through it, do they? And it's just I want the whole gang back together. Yeah, people just disappear. Oz is the biggest one, but it's like, okay, they don't care where he is anymore. Who's left? All right, well, you'll be the best man then. It's like, it was the forced one for me. I don't hate it, Matt. I just think it's notably a step down. And like I say, I almost confuse it in my head with Reunion, which I genuinely think is good. And I'm glad they did that later on. But obviously, this is the one that bombs. And then you get your American Pie Bandcamp, American Pie Bandcamp 7.
Terrible.
Like a million of them.
Better House and all that, Naked Mile, they're all shocking. But JP, I mean, you talked about this one of the pre-shows recently when I watched all four back to back. And like, this is genuinely like when Stifler comes on in this, and I'm a big Stifler guy. Like, he's so overbearing, he's so over the top that I'm like, I'm hating every time he's on screen. And he does settle down as it goes on. But Jesus Christ, that reintroduction to him is so bad. It's like,
has it been a couple of years as well? It's like they've forgotten how to write the character and he's forgotten how to play it. He is playing someone's impression of Stifler here. That was my other gigantic problem. And he was basically, this is what he'd do in other films, wouldn't he, JP? He'd go and they'd cast him in something and he'd be like, whatever, I'll just be Stifler under a new name. And he forgot what Stifler actually was like and just did that here. It was like a different human, 100%.
But JP, as we said though as well, dare I say, this has got a bit more like crude. That scene with the two dogs. JP,
yeah.
It shouldn't be as funny as it is.
It's incredibly childish. It's
so
like the scene from the second film with the videotape and the super glue. Like, I mean, it ties into it as well. I mean, I laughed at that, but I would agree with you. It's like, I would almost be like, why are you inviting him to the wedding? Like, why?
You all hate him. Why is he here?
He saves the day in the end, doesn't he? He does save the day in the end. So it's like, I'll just... He
teaches him how to dance, doesn't he?
Yes, that's what happens. Yeah. He gets the meeting with the wedding. She wants the wedding dress. He gets with the designer of the dress. But it's one of them. But as you say, I do miss that aspect that the whole gang isn't there though, because these characters like they're just fucking.
It's like Fast and Furious, mate. I feel about it like you do about this. It's about the law and the characters' relationships to each other, and they forget about that. It's just we need to get another film out called American Pie. Stifler needs to be on screen at all times. Similar issue to what we were talking about before, you know.
Right, and if we're going to end on a film, boys, I mean, is there anything else we want to talk about in a minute? But Freddie and Jason, Liam, I mean, what are we thinking on that, mate? Are you a fan?
Tough wrestling.
Average film, incredible soundtrack.
Unbelievable soundtrack, Liam. Like, unbelievable.
Yeah, just for the listeners, Spine Shank, Il Nino, Slipknot, Killswitch Engage, Chimera, Seven Dust, Powerman 5000. Very much of its time, and I was all about that is its time. But yeah, another film like this. I don't mind this film, to be honest. I think it's kind of played a bit too much for laughs, I think it is. But I think as a whole, it's not too bad a film. I think worse ones are to come with these two characters, but I don't think this one's that bad.
JP,
I went to the cinema for this.
did you? Yeah.
Yeah, I remember one of them though, where like I'm 19 and a group of mates and we're all going to the cinema and it's by committee what we're going to see. So you're never going to see the film I probably wanted to see that if Lost in Translation was out this year or something like that, Yeah. But it was like, let's go see the horror film. That's all. Oh, it's Freddy vs. Jason. It's two big stars doing the big batch at WrestleMania. Let's all go see that. And it stinks because like it takes the build all the way up to the big fight at the end. I mean, memory might be deceiving me, but I remember it just being really disappointing. And it couldn't. What else could it be? They weren't going to work a match, were they? What were they actually going to do against each other? But I remember coming out the cinema going, "That was a load of fucking shite."
Kelly Rowland's in it as well, isn't she?
Yeah, Kelly Rowland's in this. I think she gets decapitated, if I remember rightly. In this, it's the beginning of her acting career. I know she's appeared in like kids' films and stuff like that, because I've seen it on Disney Plus. Like she was in a couple of kids. I want to say it was like the Haunted Mansion remake or something along those lines as well. And it was just at this point, Freddy Krueger, he was a stand-up comedian. That's what he was, who just killed people. And instead, what he was like, actually, people kind of like him, so we're just going to give him a straight man to work with. So let's get Jason in there, who doesn't say a word and a lot easier as well. And although I was never a big Friday the 13th fan either, but it was it was like an easy kind of cash in, wasn't it, for this? It was just
But in this comic book lore, though, I mean, I'm pretty sure it is like it is like
Alien versus Predator.
Yeah, proper like comic book world, like before it was. Well, it was obviously always out, but like before it blew up with obviously the movies, the Marvels and stuff. But yeah, as I say, lads, that's completes our. Anything else anyone wants to talk about to that list, or it's pretty.
Couple of little. It's interesting with the kids' films. Rugrats was a big deal, and but
that feels like a decade late though to me. I mean, I thought was
like
97.
Rugrats movie. This is like it's a sequel on from that as well. But it's interesting. Spy Kids 3D, which shouldn't be overstated, that's still going today in some form, and it's always been an interesting part of Robert.
He's still
Rodriguez.
owning that, JP.
No,
I'm sure he's in one of them, isn't he? Stallone.
Stallone's in this one.
Stallone's
in this one as the villain. But it was always set up. It was always a really interesting kind of like interesting thing with it, because they were always low budget. You can tell on this. It was always cast with Latin American actors. It was always hitting that specific market. Who simply said there isn't any kids films aimed at like Hispanic kids. Let's just do. And Rodriguez would make one of those, and it would be a lot of fun. He always said he made it for his own kids, and then he'd go off and he'd make something for himself, and it'd be something a bit more gory, or it'd be like a proper like kind of action film. He'd do stuff like that, and he would veer between the two. And it was for this one, this is like the beginning of 3D. So the thing you see in the trailer is just all various like stuff popping out at the screens. I thought that was kind of interesting. And the Lizzie McGuire movie, if only because Hilary Duff has retired from Hollywood. And part of the reason is, and I don't know if you guys saw it, was the Quiet on Set documentaries. And
you want to watch that, JP?
Yeah,
you want to watch
that was very, very like it was a real shock, like to see what a lot of those young actors had to go through, the various kind of levels of abuse, the weirdness of the stuff that was going on at Nickelodeon as well. And this was like almost like her high point, but it was the point of like, yep, I've done this, and then she's completely stepped away from it, which fair play to her. Like, for someone who I can imagine was completely disillusioned with Hollywood. But it's always interesting when you see these top 10 lists, because there's a lot of stuff that we would watch. And then there's always going to be at least 3 or 4 films that are just aimed solely at kids, because that's always where the money is.
And also, we might... go on.
Oh, go on, Matt.
Go on. No, I'm going to say, Ben, we've pretty much covered everything, but once again, it's just quickly on number 4 there. Never seen any of the Lara Croft Tomb Raiders, like Angelina Jolie movies. Anyone ever seen any of them? Like,
the
first one.
Yeah,
that's it.
First
no
one
good.
Terrible.
Is it terrible? Yeah.
Yeah, I never saw this sequel. I did see the remake that was made a few years ago, and we ended up watching it in Egypt because it was on just TV on an evening, and it was just like, all right, we'll leave this on, because it was just, it was on an evening, so we're not going out. The kids are like wanting to watch something in bed, and it was just easy to kind of watch, but very unspectacular. I was a massive fan of the Tomb Raider games as well. I was like a big fan of those, and these were just, it was just like kind of lazy Star Vehicle stuff, particularly the sequel for this, from the guy who made Speed, Jan de Bont.
It's a bit of grapple though, because it literally built the house that Eunice lives in, doing the stunt work for this, and then everything else Angelina Jolie would ever do at that point. Looking forward to that wedding. Hopefully she's going to be there. But I was going to say quickly, just while we're on films, I mentioned it then. I've got to ask Liam. I'm assuming of a man of a certain type who likes a nice standing desk, likes a bit of a mid 2000s like Lost in Translation did come out in August 2003. Are you a Lost in Translation guy? And is it the film for the hipsters? I would say I think it's the film that birthed my my indie film love. I don't know if you're in the same bracket.
I like it, but I think it's massively overrated as a film. I do like it as a film, but I do think it's massively overrated. It's probably a film I need to revisit and watch again. I haven't watched it for a couple of years, but yeah, I do. I do think it is overrated as a film.
I think for me, it's a big film because it comes out. Obviously, August it came out in America, but obviously in England, I probably saw it a couple of months after this. But it was like the first film. Oh, you can make films about nothing. You can make films where it's just a nice little film. Oh, and then I discovered, that's basically what indie films are. That's what mumblecore is. And then it took me on an indie journey. So it's still high on my list for that reason.
I always think it led Bill Murray down the route of the Wes Anderson films and him making all of those. It was more him pushing him off towards them. I'd like to go back and revisit because I saw it once around where it came out, and I thought it was fine, but I wasn't massively into. I was more into the soundtrack, I think, than anything else. I loved that.
Oh, brilliant soundtrack! Death in Vegas and all of that.
Oh god, Death in Vegas, a cracking band.
Oh, well, good stuff, lads. We've pretty much covered all the movies from August 2003. JP, I'm going to pass it down the final stretch for you, my friend, as you
born for this.
Gloriously will cover the sport of August 2003.
Good night, lads. See you
later. We were going to go. Yeah, see ya.
Not going anywhere. Not going anywhere. You were listening to all of this stuff on here.
I might get a beer just to enjoy it.
We are into the sports realm. And we're going to be starting off with, I suppose it's television news, and it's like a combination of a couple of things we want to speak about, which is one, the time where this may seem mad for younger people, when ITV had the rights to the Premier League highlights, and they would show them at what time? It was earlier than Match of the Day.
6 o'clock, really?
7 o'clock. 7 o'clock it initially started. It was
never right, that was it. Never right.
Too early. Too early.
It's like with Sky Sports, got it. You know, when you could watch the Sky Sports highlights that are out right now, or you could wait for Match of the Day at 10. Yeah. I'm always choosing Match of the Day.
Yeah,
exactly. And it was we had the 2003-2004 season. This was the last one that ITV would have.
And happened on that, mate.
Huh? Well, you say that. First thing I'll do. Well, the first thing we'll do is we'll talk about the Premiership. And this is, I suppose, a slight annoyance for me is the fact that it was using Beautiful Day.
Great tune, JP. I love it.
Well, I always thought ITV got it right by using the instrumental to Bittersweet Symphony as for England tracks, and that seems to have stuck. But this one was it was. I don't know. I wasn't mad about them using. Look how old Rooney is there.
But JP, is that because they were used it for Triple H's quad recovery? That's why you hate the song, don't you?
Yeah. I wanted him to do it again. That's what I wanted him to do. But it was at a time when, for me as an Arsenal fan, this was the biggest season. It was the last season that I was going to games on a regular basis before probably about 2 years ago, when I was able to start going back a lot more. And it was a hell of a season to go because, like I said earlier on, I lived in Islington, so I was couldn't escape from it. It was easy to go and get tickets and stuff like that. But yeah, you had Des Lynam presenting it as well at the same time.
Main eventers, JP. We're talking main eventers here.
I always think of the Premiership as leading into the decline of ITV, though, at times where I just thought they couldn't even do football highlights right. Just couldn't even do that. Couldn't even. What do you have to do? You show highlights of a game, and then you get a couple of people to talk about it afterwards, and they couldn't even do that.
The adverts, though, isn't it? As well, it genuinely is like that. The adverts playing.
It's adverts is a really big thing for this as well, and obviously because you had things like, I don't know, you had the Pro Zone in here, which obviously I've got up on here for video viewers as well, where. My God, we wanted tactical analysis, and the problem was with adverts and sport and stuff like that is that adverts like analysis. How much of that would you get? You'd get 2 minutes before you have to cut to a break. But yeah, what were your thoughts, lads, on the Premiership on ITV?
I remember there being it. Go on, Matt.
No, I'm just thinking of the first thing is the tactics struck with Andy Townsend. That's all I remember from the Premiership. Like, and I never used to mind Townsend on co-coms with Tilsley. I liked him in that aspect, but he was just. But to be fair, you were having a go trying to break down stuff. Like, I probably weren't asked because I was younger at the time. But looking back now, I might go, oh, you know what? And look, I forgot they had players in there as well after the game, so fair play to them. They give a go, JP.
Do you think he got the Homes Under the Hammer gig? Like, this is like the start of the Dion Dublin casually presenting telly as well, because he's actually very good. And this is from a couple of years previously as well. But yeah, the tactics truck was the thing that was just, it was just something to take the piss out of. That's what it felt like.
I remember the big build up to that Prozo, because it was like, oh, Wenger uses it. Ferguson uses it for analysis before game, and I think, it's easy to look at this and go, "Oh, it was absolute rubbish." But is that Pro Zone any different to what Carragher and Neville do on a Monday evening? It's kind of created that. But question for Benno: what's a bigger disappointment, the build up to the Pro Zone and what it actually was, or the ROH bot and what it actually was?
The robot arm. It's close, very similar categories as well, 100%. But I think the thing for me with it just to this day, I think we've all got it inbuilt in us. Like, when England are on and they're on ITV and BBC, what you put on?
Yeah.
Like, we'd all say BBC, wouldn't we? There's something built in that is just wrong. ITV, they throw money at it, they try it, like they'll buy it out and they'll think it all way, and there's always been something wrong about it. Matty's shaking his head as the one Fed fan here, so you're probably going with it.
No, I like
BBC's
coverage, but I prefer ITV's commentary. I do. I don't like the BBC's commentary's awful.
IWC Ali McCoist. Everyone's a fan.
Ali McCoist is the fucking main man, mate.
What a bloke.
Well, not to go off on a tangent here, but what does, over the last 20 years, what does ITV do well? They don't do good comedy. Their dramas are not on a par with BBC. You'd say BBC do the better first run dramas. Their sports coverage is second to BBC and like millions miles away from Sky. I just don't get ITV. They're kind of like middling at everything they do.
Best game shows though, Liam. They've always had the best game shows.
Yeah, fair.
I think the drama has improved. Like, there was a point in time when they just didn't make original TV. It just felt like they'd given up.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, what were they weren't even making like the late night stuff. They just went off to like showing like casino and interactive gambling stuff. And I just thought it's incredibly lazy of them to do that. I think their football coverage, I have to say, is like, and this is partly because they spend a fortune on bringing in people from Sky, isn't it? It's like, I don't know, spending a load of money on, it's like Ring of Honor spending a load of money and bringing in New Japan lads in 2018. It's like, well, yeah, you're going to get a bit of a buzz because you've just brought in Okada while he's bloody hot and Naito when he could still walk, isn't it? It was like an easy thing to do. I think the sports coverage has improved, but fundamentally, and I think there's a good argument for the Euros just gone, that they were much better than the BBC. It was the first time I looked at the BBC and went, you need to change things around. Like, your panels are very, very stale and other stuff, and they had much more sort of like interesting conversations and everything else.
I love that ecosystem of all the pundits where it's like, there's like the guys who've got the top level jobs at Sky, BBC, ITV. Then there's the freelancers you'll see doing like the official Premier League stuff. And then there's the lads who are like, DAZN needs someone, or some channel in Saudi Arabia needs someone, or USA Network needs someone. There's like a haves and haves not, isn't it?
Looking
like
at you, Leon Osman.
Yeah. What's the one on USA Network? Who does that one? Both got the same
Robbie
name.
Mustoe.
The two Robbies, they're
Robbie Hale.
Like, Tim Howard gets a lot of work out there as well. It's just it's funny when you see these names pop up. I've never seen you on Sky or BBC, but here you are. You're getting work as a pundit somewhere abroad. Always happens.
How would you rank this panel, Matty? Venables, Lynham, and Big Ron.
I mean, Venables
That's
and
a stable,
Rhinos, especially,
Running.
they're literally, soon as they clock off, soon as the show ends, they're on a fucking plane, aren't they, Liam, going to the golf course in Tenerife or Marbella or something.
Do you think that's why ITV put it on at 7 o'clock so they could catch the plane?
Oh,
so they were
100%.
fresh for the Sunday tea.
Sunday
Been a
morning.
bar in Madrid
there,
by midnight.
Oh,
man.
mate, absolute legend. Just having just the right knees up, weren't it? Like, just unbelievable stuff. Two absolute legends, Venables and Lynham.
And Lynham. I mean, I'll always maintain that after the death of Princess Diana and like the Dando-shaped hold, Lynham kind of took hold of the country there for a while. Honestly, I want to see millions on the street for the sad day when he passes. But I'd be remiss not to mention like the thing about this season as well. And this is incredible when you're looking, you can see it up here on the screen as well. The England 11 to play France in Euro 2004, and the same names and the same arguments. Lampard. It'd be like Lampard, Beckham, Gerrard, Scholes, somewhere in the midfield. He's got Gerrard. Really? Ali McCoy's has got Gerrard as a wing.
Southgate in there. Fucking hell, Ali.
Incredible.
Also, pick one, Heskey or Rooney. Come on, pick one. Why did you get both?
I think you'd have to go for Wayne Rooney. No,
You would.
And Euro 2004 would prove us right on that one because he scores against France there as well. But that was just. That season for me was just absolutely nuts. And it's still something that, like, I live in fear of Man City breaking it, given my hatred of Man City. But Arsenal going through the season unbeaten and getting to go to a load of those games that year as well. I remember a Charlton game with Thierry Henry scoring like a hat trick, and it was pissing down with rain and just losing my mind for that. And it was just every week, like we drew a lot of games that year, but won the league by 11 points. 90 points was the same as what Man City got last year. Like, wasn't it? I want to say it was. I think we got 89.
On the slide, JP, yeah. Like, I know, obviously, like people try and tarnish the Invincibles in ways like that. Too many draws, but 90 points back then, you know, some going. No. You know what I mean? Still, so it's. It must have been JP. But serious note though, it must have been like the most literally incredible season. Just watching that and just honestly, like it must be like it's unheard of, isn't it?
It was absolutely nuts. We were just kind of, we should have won the Champions League that year. We went out to Chelsea.
Yeah. At home, really? Wayne Bridge, wasn't it?
Wayne Bridge. And that hurt massively. Henry was in his pomp. People would always say, oh, Jens Lehmann's not a good keeper. And it's like, he had to be pretty good for us to go.
Perez, though.
Perez
was
ridiculous.
Oh, mate.
Well, it's Perez and Ljungberg would always chip in a load of goals. Perez would score. There was a game away at Liverpool where we were 1-0 down and we were down 10 men and we won 2-1, and it was just Graham Poll being a shithouse as always. But it was just like Everton on the last. Well, no, it wasn't. It was Leicester on the last day of the season, which I think we went 1 down in that game as well. Yeah. It was like a bit terrifying for that one to go through unbeaten. And I went to the opening day of the season afterwards, and we played Middlesbrough. And we won 5-3, but we were 3-1 down. And
Frank Kudzu, didn't he score in that game? Worldy goals.
Got divorced from the wife, and they took his wages, so he moved to Middlesbrough in order to pay her off. He's doing all right now, Ray.
Yeah. I do have to chuckle that you wait all them years for that to happen, and you have to watch it on ITV on the worst panned highlight show of Premier League goals ever.
I know. It trust me, it's something that bothers me massively. But I was like proper football that year. But what a year! Like just incredible. And it's again, it's something. It's because and we know this, but we know this as well. Like the Premier League is just so attritional. Like the range between the good and the bad sides is actually quite narrow. Like you can get beaten by a team that finishes 10th or 11th because they have enough good players in order to do that. And it's incredibly hard to do. So every year, like one of my happiest moments was when Man City lose, because I'm like, oh, thank God. They're not going to take away that record. That's the one thing that we kind of have.
JP, can I ask you this, though? I know it might sound a stupid question. Like, obviously, people go on Henry, Bergkamp, and Vieira. How good was Vieira, though, mate? Like, seriously, like, he was ridiculous. Unbelievable, wasn't he? Like, just...
When he wasn't getting sent off.
Yeah, no, but JP, he was so fucking good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He really was. He was ridiculously good that year, and he was a side that we should have been like, I don't know, we should have done better in Europe, but that's the eternal Arsenal problem. Is the thing that we're kind of waiting for. It was like we had to wait another couple of years to get through to a Champions League final, where obviously Lehmann got sent off after 10 minutes, where with the benefit of hindsight, what a different game it would have been.
You probably would have won, JP.
If they just allowed the goal and they'd just given him a yellow card and it just been, we'd been 1-0 down and gone, right, okay, now we've got to take on Barcelona. And instead it was like you were just waiting. Even though we went 1-up, he was just waiting for Barcelona to score there. But yeah, happy days, mate. Honestly, I've got so much love for that team. I've got books on the Invincibles. There's an Invincible documentary out, which obviously I've watched the shit out of as well at the same time. Like that, just happy, glorious times. I don't know if you could say, I don't know where Liverpool were that year. Was that in the
finished fourth? Got back in the Champions League. Okay. Yeah, because the year before we got beat on that.
I was listening to the analysis, so many points behind there first, you know.
Well, we got beat on the last day of the season before by Chelsea. Remember that the playoff, basically a Champions League playoff game at Stamford Bridge. So we had the year out and then got back in that season. So it was one of them. Year before, last Houllier season, when Rafa come in the next season, and we had Istanbul, JP. So all good.
It worked out right for you.
This was so this is Moisey era, so you actually get Benno paying attention to football era here. This is his second season, so first season we finished 7th, something like that, didn't we? And obviously Rooney's coming through and it's all exciting. This season it's literally one place away from relegation. Point wise we're pretty clear, but like it's a dreadful season, this one, because all the talk is Rooney going to United, Rooney's going to be in the England squad, and like this hope. It was the season where they could have easily sacked David Moyes and gone, oh, well, he was a flash in the pan one season and done, and he's gone. But to be fair, they stuck with him, and obviously we have very good finishes the year after it. But this is literally Moyes' lowest ebb. But he's a young manager, and he didn't know what he was doing, and like it's always the lesson, isn't it? That they actually stuck with him and gave him that chance is what turned around Everton for like a decade.
There was also something that appeared up there on screen as well, which was the usual Sam Allardyce signs rolling over and dying for Man United and Sir Alex Ferguson. That was a
belly tickle, JP.
They would come with just let's kill each and every one of the Arsenal players. Man United come, oh go on, it's 4-0, and aren't Man United great? And it was just like piss takers. They really were.
What's going on with the baggies at this point, mate?
Well, I was told that this section was going to lead off with one of the all-time great Football Association sides achieving the impossible. I thought JP was going to talk about West Bromwich Albion being promoted to the Premier League. Not what he ended up speaking about at all. We finished second in the First Division and were promoted to the Premier League this season. Also this season, we had our best League Cup run in years, and we got to the quarterfinals, where Arsenal knocked us out. It was a good season for the Albion. Jason Roberts up front, Gary Megson as the manager. It's got a good season.
Solid. Like Megson. A lot of time for Megs.
Yeah,
No, I mean that. Maybe we got that 2-2 draw with Bolton at the Allianz against Bayern. How did that happen? In like 2008. How the hell did that happen?
And again, you see on screen the novelty of Wolves getting promoted as well. Yeah. You see all these in the Premier League era.
Because Liam, isn't the year after the Great Escape when you come up for the first year and then you're just done at Christmas, aren't you? And then you're actually
Jeff Horsfield, and I think
Ian Richardson were in it as well.
Kevin Campbell was in the side as well, in the squad then as well. Yeah,
what a guy!
Benno,
super Kev, and JP as well. Like what a
legend, absolute legend. Yeah.
He was, I was at the opening day of the season against Wolves, and there was minutes like applause for him as well, and lots of chants of Super Kevin Campbell as well at the same time. I'd forgotten Andy Cole had gone to Blackburn for a period of time. I was like, bloody hell, that feels like stuff from a
Jochen Cole up front winner for Blackburn as well. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, well, it would have been Dwight York who'd have been on the fucking tear, though, wouldn't he? At that stage as well. Given that's how he was. And speaking of lads on the tear, we're going to move over to the world of MMA at this point in time, and Pride FC, where we've got Total Elimination 2003, which I think is a nice shout to name it after the Eliminators tag team finisher of Cronus and Perry Saturn there as well. Which is
what a move, yeah.
This is an interesting playlist that you'd put together for this, Liam, as well. Were watching Pride at this point in time?
I was getting tapes intermittently because Pride was not to sound like Dave here, the biggest combat sports promotion in the world at this point. I mean, my interest in WWE dropped off. I was watching a bit of indies. Pride was so sizably bigger than the UFC at this point. It's kind of hard to fathom, seeing the juggernaut that the UFC's become, how big Pride was at this time. For instance, this show drew 40,000 people paid to Saitama Super Arena. The event afterwards drew just over. The event after that drew 67,000, and the event after that drew 39,000. Consecutive events for any promotion doing that sort of gate is incredible. But the hype around Pride at the time, it was a case of the best MMA fighters in the world are fighting in Pride. For this one that we're looking at in August 2003, Total Elimination, you'll notice that Chuck Liddell's on the card. Basically, the whole premise of the card is a middleweight Grand Prix, with the first 4 quarterfinal fights happening on this card, leading into the next card where they would have the semi-final and the final.
Can't spell Chuck Liddell, though, can they? As well,
no. But Chuck Liddell,
TT, isn't it?
Yeah, Ric Flair with a K. Chuck Liddell was on loan from the UFC.
Yeah.
Basically, he didn't have any competition in the UFC at this point. He'd kind of beaten all the better middleweights in the UFC that they sent him to Pride to compete in this tournament. A bit of ego and bluster saying that he could have beaten everybody in this Grand Prix with the UFC logo on his trunks. So they let him go over, and this is before UFC had bought Pride. There were 2 separate entities. But the whole tournament, I mean, if you just look at the names that are in this tournament, even if you're not a UFC fan, if you're a casual observer of MMA in general, who we spoke about before, Sakuraba was on the card.
Yep.
Obviously, Mirko Cro Cop, Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira, Rampage Jackson, Chuck Liddell, Fedor fought in a non-tournament fight. Alistair Overeem fought.
Overeem,
yeah. From top to bottom, it was a stack.
Skinny Overeem.
Yeah, it was an absolute stack card. Yeah, Overeem fighting at middleweight and Overeem that ended up fighting at heavyweight. 2 different people. But yeah, a great card. And at this point, Pride was huge, and it was like the destination fight promotion in the world. Boxing was on a bit of a downswing, particularly over here. Lennox Lewis had retired, or he retires this year. Ricky Hatton really didn't have that upswell of the star that he had become. Same with Joe Calzaghe. Nassim Hamid had retired as well. So boxing was in a kind of a flux over here. UFC, as I said, wasn't as big as it was. We passed the point of the invasion at this point with WCW. WWF. So a lot of people had fallen out of love with professional wrestling in America, and Pride, I think, for a lot of people, if nothing else, for people like Dave, just constantly jamming it down your throat, how big and how important these events were in the Observer every time we reviewed them.
Totally.
That at this point, Pride was the biggest thing in the world.
We've seen that. We've done episodes of Observe This, Benno. We've seen the amount of MMA coverage, because there's not a whole lot to talk about in large swathes of Japan's on the downturn as well. I think it's like notable as well. We will get onto the Inoki appearing in a little bit, I'd imagine, as well. But you could see there as well, there was a film trailer for Baz Rutten. Here it is, for the Eliminator, which has got Michael Rooker there, who some people might remember from loads and loads of stuff. But I'll always think of him in Walking Dead. He had like a long recurring role in that, and it was at that point, it was like they were going to do crossovers. This stuff is very, very cringeworthy, because clearly they've done like some making into highlight form, so it's palatable for like a US audience as well. But I think it's a spectacle. It's just that you've got Lenny Hart, you've got like what feels like real epic grandeur as well, all funded by Yakuza money, or certainly Yakuza contacts there for TV there as well, which would end up being the complete downfall of it. But these are proper stars. Like, this is young Fedor.
Just reading up here, Liam, like on Pride itself, like it's the largest ever MMA events attendance, 91,107 people at the Pride and K1 Shockwave Dynamite in August 2002. Fucking hell, mate.
Yeah.
That's some fucking it's ridiculous.
You cannot stress how big Pride was. I mean, I remember I remember that their shows were shown on pay-per-view in America on a week's delay, and they still did like incredible numbers because it was before the age of like, you know, downloading and stuff like that. And people still valued having the American commentary and stuff. And that like they would do like 30,000 pay-per-view buys for something on a week's delay because the demand was there. Wrestling fans were watching it because, as JP said, because of the spectacle, and there was the crossover. I think the event after this, if I'm right, Crow Cop fights Alberto Del Rio in a shoot fight after this event. So there was that crossover between wrestling fans who wanted to watch it. Then you had your core MMA fans that wanted to watch it. And then you had your kickboxing fans who kind of didn't get into MMA because of the grappling or so, but they often did crossover events with K1, like you said, with Shockwave. So they would watch it as well. And, you know, you can never underestimate with stuff like this, just seeing the sheer spectacle and the scale of something like this, that people want to be a part of seeing something. And even if they have no interest, it's like, it feels like a happening, so they want to see it.
It's almost like I'm getting reminded by, I mean, at this stage, you would have had Noah as being by far and away the biggest Japanese promotion at that stage. The one that's running definitely. 03, yeah, absolutely. But it kind of harkens back to New Japan in the 90s, like, you know, these kind of epic hot crowds. And obviously, I mean, Nagata's, he hasn't fought Crow Cop by this stage, has he? I know Kazuyuki Fujita makes an appearance.
I don't think he's fought Nagata at this point now.
He has. I mean, we haven't got that point of like proper Inokiism and that stuff. But you can see that the fact that he's attaching himself to this is he's going, oh, this is where wrestling needs to go.
Yeah, that's what it felt like.
And it's,
I find it so interesting as like a historical like just thing. Like I'm just listening to you two talk about it. Like it's like all of the names, everything about Pride, like you say, it's in all the observers. It's like a subject I've always kind of been aware of from afar, but just wasn't watching or experiencing at the time. But you get that feeling why, like, you know, with Meltzer and that cover in the early UFCs, and then into this period, it did feel like, oh, this is the future of wrestling. It didn't pan out that way, obviously, but everyone felt like that. It's what the fan base, what the UFC fan base was built on in the early days. Everyone migrating in that direction. It's like it's way more exciting than what's going on in wrestling in this period. It's like just watching the highlights here on screen. It's like, fuck, I wish I was watching at the time.
And you see it especially with Rampage Jackson. People have got gimmicks. Basically, they've got gimmicks. Like they're coming out. I mean, everything about it, like the entrances. It was part of the reason I ended up watching Rising for a long time because they just wholesale. I mean, it was the same guy. I can't think of the guy's name. Who was the same bloke who's basically behind Pride is behind Rising, and even though it's like the roster itself can't even remotely touch like UFC, like they're nowhere near the level. What they do have is the spectacle. They have those entrances. They have those gimmicks. And there's a part of you that always wants to see it. It's the thing that UFC, that kind of lets UFC down, is that a lot of it is because they always want to do like the proper sports like presentation. In fact, you want a bit of spectacle. You want a bit of bombast. You do. You want Israel Adesanya kind of doing his Undertaker walkouts and stuff like that. They're the stuff that's like kind of more fun than anything else.
Was it on over here? Or was it on TV or the pay-per-views?
Eurosport event? No, was it not?
K1 was on Eurosport. This it never really even had VHS or DVD release. It was always that word of mouth. It was always that word of mouth thing over here. It was never really like.
It had a game though, didn't it, Liam? Because I remember being advertised on WWE, and it was sponsored by the Pride game, like Raw for years. It felt like,
I'd have been banging to this. I really would have if it had been on my radar. So I went down the ROH route around this time instead. But like this could have been the path young Benno could have taken. But
it's like JP was mentioning about Noah. You look at that Noah Destiny show in the Dome. It's like the first time in a while that production is on that level, and we look at this and we're kind of used to this production through American wrestling at that time. But for Japan, they've never seen anything like this on this scale in an arenas this size. It's like something they've never had, and that's why it seemed like such a spectacle. Yeah,
brilliant. It really. And you've got a very, very young Sakuraba who I mean, like, there's so many matches I've seen of his when he was involved in New Japan. You go, this is rubbish. Like, this is genuine rubbish. Like, why is this bloke like a megastar? The pop he receives at this show when he comes out to take on Vanderlei Silva, it is insane. Yeah. And he's obviously on the Gracie Killers, kind of like the Gracie Hunter like gimmick as well. And it's like he's got his mask and everything else. And it is this idea of like proper pomp and circumstance that you miss at times. Like, and you always think that's what they need to go for.
It's also, I also think it's another thing that a lot of people don't mention in terms of its popularity, is that it's that Inoki model from the 70s of the 80s of the Japanese superstar fighting the guy that's come into Japan. So you've got Overeem, you've got Liddell, you've got Crocop, you've got Fedor, you've got Nagara, you've got Rampage. They're all guys that are matched up against Japanese fighters, and it's that Japanese fighter to overcome the guy that's come in to beat them. And you know, Inoki did it for years with like fighters and shoot fighters coming in, like Russian wrestlers, boxers coming into New Japan, and him fighting them. And it was very similar model of that over the time, these foreign fighters that would come in like a Rampage would beat Japanese fighters and would become stars themselves by proxy of beating the local fighters.
Yeah. And, you know, and the money they were making. I mean, he talks about it in the interview. And what's interesting is, like, because it's in Japan, it's just like he's swearing away. Yes. He's talking about, like, beating fuck out of people. Yeah, he's still doing the slap across the face. I would always have loved someone to just take him down and beat shit out of him, mind. Just to teach him a bit of a lesson there as well. But you could see, like, and this is, and I always wondered, like, when I was watching this bit, I was thinking this is probably as much like the myth around the Muhammad Ali match, which is obviously awful, but that then forms the template for sort of what modern MMA or what the UFC ends up becoming as well. And so it's weird how he's got this like kind of crossover into the world of MMA, even if it ends up destroying the company that he ends up building, doesn't it? It's a very weird one. Yeah. So yeah, we've that's Pride for that point in time.
That, you know, on lads, do like a deep cut or something like that. Find a way to like cover it in a way. Definitely get you on for it, Liam. I think I'd sit under the learning tree and very much enjoy that.
Listen to that. Yeah.
I'd love a bit of that. That'd be absolutely tremendous. And to finish off, this is something I knew nothing about. But ESPN on the 26th of August premiered its first ever original drama series on the network titled Playmakers. This is based around a fictional American football team. It was cancelled after its first season, despite being the highest rated show outside of the live NFL coverage. And this is due to pressure from The Office, because they disliked the negative aspects of the game being highlighted, and that led to the cancellation of the show. And I immediately thought, did they not watch The Last Boy Scout? That would have done as much of a job at the beginning of that. But Liam, I'll go to you on this. Have you seen Playmakers? Is this something that you've followed?
Matty will be proud of this. I've got this on physical somewhere.
I'm very, very proud.
I got on screen. It's a show copy.
The Scott leads on its way out.
Proper that.
JP, take it out, give it a blow, and put it back in, and you should be all right.
That'll work.
I remember the infamy around this series when it was released. That it wasn't shown over here. When I got it imported from America when it was released on DVD. Series that ESPN put together. Probably the best comparison is Dream Team over here in terms of how it represented the NFL, but a lot more X-rated. Bits about drug abuse, footballers taking painkillers, painkiller addiction, domestic violence.
Footballers' wives, then, Liam, you mean?
Stabbings. Footballers' wives probably more akin with that. But I think the big issue was ESPN was a partner with the NFL. ESPN was showing NFL games, and they also produced this series that was kind of lifting the lid on the league itself. There was a lot of negative publicity about it, and the league kind of, I think, read into that. And the NFL if people are removed from the NFL, are very protective of its IP and its identity, basically. And as soon as these two lines got blurred, that you've got ESPN producing a program about American football, and ESPN's a station that shows the NFL. The NFL applied the pressure, probably because it knew it could, because they are a league where every channel in America, if they had the financial cause to do so, would bid for its coverage. So they knew if ESPN had any issues with them wanting to get rid of this show, they could go to Fox, they could go to CBS, they could go to NBC. So basically, NFL flexed this muscle and says, we don't like this show. We want you to get rid of it. And ultimately, that's what's happened.
I find it interesting because these days, I think dramas like this would do actually very, very well. Because I think people want the warts and all kind of coverage.
Ballers, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's literally what.
Going
through it, Liam, I was like, that sounds like the run. What Dwayne was like, okay, we'll do Entourage and mix it with this. That's basically what that show is. It's about him like being addicted to painkillers. It's about all the women and things like that. It's more glamorized, and you get away with it in the 2020s compared to obviously this time.
Yeah,
well, especially it being a show as well that there had been nothing like it before. That I think it was very much the NFL wanted to nip it in the bud and go, this is not going to be the trend that comes on from this. And as you say, you look at things that come afterwards, Ballers, even something along the lines of like the film Concussion. Concussion's a massive discussion point in the series, with players having to retire and memory loss and brain injuries. And, after the time that those sort of subject matters have been put out there, and even when the NFL have kind of like applied pressure for stuff not to be so visible, they've still gone ahead. So if nothing else, Playmakers kind of the catalyst that people knew that like, this is something we need to kind of put out there. It's a story that needs to be told.
Yeah. Right. If that takes us, unless anybody else has got anything else they'd like to add on to Playmakers, that takes us to the end of this month's time. And that was absolutely fucking brilliant, lads. How about yourselves? I loved every second.
Always one of the better shows that I love being a part of, guys. I fucking love it. Liam, brilliant work as always, mate.
As always,
Liam. Benno, are you back for good now? That is someone else taking a show off next time?
I'll sit in your seat next time, mate. I'm shuffling around in these seats and sitting wherever. Generally, like, you know what this reminded me of? Like in the pandemic, when like me and my mates would just sit on a Friday night and just chat. Do you know what I mean? That's what it feels like. I'm 4 tiny beers deep, so I don't think I'm drunk, but I feel like I am. I've had a cracking time, lads. Just great to be here and bask in time, and always a fan of the show. So happy to be here whenever you need me.
Great to have you.
Brilliant stuff.
And thank you, Liam. Cracking job, mate.
Thank you, Liam, as always. And brilliant stuff. Look forward to what the next episode of Time is going to entail and which year. Would you like to keep as a little mystery? But otherwise, bye.
So yeah,
English.